Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Aurora. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and today is Level 2, Lesson 4, which is all about telepathy and the higher senses. And astute people will say, Aurora, didn't you just do Level 2, Lesson 5? And are you doing things in a backwards cockamamie order? And the answer is yes, I am. Although I am still part of my doing my curriculum, I'm doing it in a relatively strange order. I admit to that. So thank you for giving me that flexibility and how the fluidity and how I need to present things. But this is definitely relevant to what I spoke about last week. To refresh your mind, last week was about the solar consciousness and the sun's connection and really all light connection to the galactic center and basically to a hyperspace realm. The concept of light being something that does not merely flow in a linear sense from point A to point B, but that in order for impulses to get from the galactic center, which is a point of super consciousness, to the stars that then emanate to us in terms of biological life, if it were to take the linear journey, that would take too many billions of years to be relevant. So there has to be some folding of time space, or you consider it as behind the scenes time tunneling to be able to have an effective conversation, because otherwise the scale of time lifespan makes it almost impossible to be able to have a productive conversation. Like I use the example of you trying to have a conversation with a fruit fly or a dragonfly or some extremely short-lived insect. So all of this relates to our conversation today or to the lecture today, because this is about your tendril of attention and talking to things on the time phone. And I'm very excited because I'm, of course, going to always relate the things that I'm talking about. Sorry if I'm distracted. I'm getting my pieces of paper over here. The things that I not wrote, but that I spoke about 10 years ago and then later transliterated, because I'm not a very good writer. But how all of those concepts relate to the context of some of these things that are going on in our world right now. Because some of what I wrote, as always, stands as like a classic outfit, the tuxedo or the little black dress that goes with anything, no matter what the styles are. But some of those things we have to change and modify in order to be successful in the current context that you're in. So as I'm also going over my notes, and of course I'm always preparing before I do my class, like I usually begin the night before, and I'm organizing my thoughts and thinking about how I'm going to present things, I think it's actually easier for me in terms of the climate of enunciation reduction that sometimes happens on some of these technological video sharing services, for me to talk about these things using languaging that might sound spiritual or religious, as opposed to rationalist and technological. But please stick with me, because this is a rationalist and technological and measurable by the five senses challenge that you face. But I'm going to largely use words that might be interpreted through a religious filter. Again, I think it gives me more latitude on this particular way of being able to talk about things. So I'm going to call some of these things Antichrist. Right. And when I speak of those words in the traditional human context, people think of it in terms of Judeo-Christianity, biblical literalism, and different myths about, what is Antichrist. Of course, I'm not a biblical traditionalist, and I'm not believing in those myths, even though I am kind of alluding to them, but I don't want to breathe life into them. But I'm going to use some of that languaging when I start to talk about some of these things, because specifically, there we go. I'm sorry, I'm making such silly faces. These things right here in the brain and the human neurology, I'm going to call that Antichrist hardware. And it is valid because really what we're going to talk about today is your Christ chakra. And you guys know that when I speak about these things and when I wear a religious symbol like the cross, I am not in any way affiliated with earthly church. And I am, as Aurora, affiliated with Christ consciousness and the larger Christ collective that is a benevolent and protective force field in the galaxy. But I also always have to be honest that there's a lot of bad news surrounding the capacitation or incapacitation or ineffectiveness of that protective force field. Because the truth is, you would not have a lot of stuff going on in your world right now if that galactic protective force field was actually doing its job. I am making this face because I am not happy. This is me not making a happy face. This is the face that I make when like you're my roommate or my housemate, and I'm like, oh, look, there is a mess in the kitchen. Did somebody make a mess? Somebody made a mess in the kitchen and they did not clean it up. This is the face that I would make. Yeah, no, very, very giant mess in the galaxy that is definitely affecting your personal bid for freedom as an individual and planetary bid for freedom in terms of planetary ascension. So all of these things really, really matter when we are talking about levels of responsibility and the relationship between the indigo or Christ consciousness chakra and the crown or the violet chakra. So first we begin with picture pages. As always, I can say so many things with pictures than with the flapping of my moving mouth parts. I always collapse this down for privacy's sake. Then I make this go bye-bye. I always organize my screen. It just doesn't always end up that way when I first do the share with you guys. Okay, so first let's talk about, I've shown you this image, of course, many times in class. I have this one prepared over here. There we go, and let's wait. Getting frustrated already. Okay, move this one aside. Okay, good. So now you can see two very accurate drawings of the relationship and genuine partnership between the indigo Christ chakra and the violet, you would call it like divine connection chakra. Your violet chakra, although I'm always pointing to the top of my head, like I'm a little ballerina and that's the top of my head, it's your crown, but it really is affiliated not just with your skull, it's affiliated with your DNA. It is really the center of every cell, in the center of every nucleus. Inside of your DNA, you have this place that is really a connection. Sorry, again, I'm just adjusting some fans because it's very, very hot in here and I have all my electric equipment kind of like heating me up. Okay, thank you. You have all of this, you have a connection to God, or what you would call like the zeroth dimension or the infinity point, inside of not only the shape of your DNA, but the activity of your DNA, the resonance of your DNA, the activity that it is doing, its aliveness. So it's not necessarily something that you can point to anatomically and say, oh, this gene structure, like this dead, inert, non-moving gene structure is your connection to divinity and your God point. Not that accurate. Much more accurate to say that the dynamic dance of your DNA is really a huge part of your connectivity to this higher source of intelligence and higher octave of intelligence. And that higher octave of intelligence is absolutely synonymous with what's coming from the galactic center, what I talked about last week. And that part of your ability to connect with higher consciousness or consciousnesses that are more refined and are moving at a faster rate through time has to do with your relationship to time. So if this seems overwhelming, just reduce it down to my DNA has a connection to time. My DNA dancing is what propels me through time. The patterned dance of my DNA as I'm dancing through time is directly related to my divine connection. All right. And hold those as like foundational truths. And also hold as a foundational truth, therefore, that anything that contravenes your natural DNA dance, your natural DNA behavior, the natural positive patterns that you generate when you're in a state of health is going to be anti-life, anti-divine higher intelligence, anti-God, anti-Christ. And the things that I always hold up on my naughty piece of paper over here, but that you might not be able to read legibly on your screen, but those things are anti-Christ, specifically when they inhibit or dilute or pollute DNA and its behavior. And DNA also reverberates across time. It is non-local, and we're going to talk today a lot about non-locality of your higher senses. And what you do to one aspect of DNA affects the whole. And that also speaks to what I teach about in Path of Light and other levels of higher consciousness or highest consciousness attainment, that when you get to these higher levels, you can and do drop your guardedness and reduce your boundaries, because you are, first of all, you've purged your system of anything that is not pristine and anything that's not supposed to be there. And you are recognizing that you are totally connected to everything, connected to all light everywhere, connected to all consciousness everywhere, and therefore responsible to all of those things as if they are self. And that's really important. And we also presume your non-self-destructiveness, because some people are like, yeah, it's all self, but I hate self and I hate you. And that's because you are self and I hate me. It's like, no, we don't do that. We purge self-destructiveness because we recognize that's stuff that is from the periphery. That's not your real self. And we also recognize that a lot of self-destructiveness is residual consciousness as a result of stuff that's stuck on the membranes of death. That is like, I am not supposed to, I'm paraphrasing from its viewpoint. I am stuck on the membrane of death. I'm not supposed to exist. I hate myself. I'm going to self-destruct now because it knows that it shouldn't exist in some way. So we who do actually exist, the conscious impulses who do actually exist, we say, no, thank you. I do not associate with, identify with, or affiliate with any of this stuff that is non-me and that is self-destructive. And then when you come to levels of divine connection, levels of pure undiluted consciousness and being the world of pure light, like, wow, I'm all consciousness, I'm all light, but you can't get there prematurely. And when you're in that state, then you also recognize the responsibility you have towards everythingness. And in your loving, self-responsible state, you are responsible positively to all of the life that you see around you. Okay, like that's the far-flung future from your viewpoint, but in inevitability, hopefully something positive. Okay, that back to, please place your tendril of attention on these images, class. And I joke about that too, like the teacher that would always say, class, pay attention, because this is the lesson where I teach you about what your attention is. So your attention is actually a tendril that emerges from your mind. And when I say mind, I'm always pointing up here, like to your forehead, but these are shorthands, shorthanded symbols for me to be able to talk to you about these things. Your mind is really beyond your verbal mind, and it is beyond your daily waking intellect. It's your true mind, really the mind or the perception of consciousness that you came here with as an infant. And we're also going to talk about the awakening of your light body and how the stages of development of awakening of your light body directly an analog parallel your stages of development as an infant human. Of course, I'm a walk-in and I came into this body in adulthood. And so I did not experience the early stages of infant human development. And I had to have a huge education about all of them because I didn't have first-person memories of that, you know? So I definitely did a lot of work with being a professional babysitter, being a live-in nanny, learning from the outsider viewpoint by working with children of what their world is like, and being able to then draw parallels between how the light body awakens. But my journey is very different than most other people. So I learned a lot of the lessons that people learn in biological, in infant and early childhood, in chronological adulthood. But I came here with an awakened light body, so I didn't have to go through the stages of kind of like having to arrange my light body senses and kind of like not knowing what I'm seeing, not knowing what I'm sensing. I already came here with that. So it's just, I want to say, like, don't use me as an example, but like my life is very weird. But your lives will make a lot more sense, and I'll describe it all explicitly. Back to looking at these images here. I chose these two for a reason, because you can see really, really clearly in the area where I'm wiggling my cursor. So this is like the center of the person's skull that I have presented here. What you have first is, this is the indigo chakra, deep blue, and it has a horizontal orientation, kind of like wheels of a car. And the wheels of the car go around in a track, and the track is created by this. This is your heart creating a force field of unconditional love. And unconditional love is not love or affection or snuggliness. We know now that my definition of unconditional love is the currency of the cosmic infrastructure. It is the currency or a love tone of equal giving and receiving, but so being like correctly placed in time and in your movement through time. And also unconditional love is a tone of acceptance. So not only are you embedded in the moment now and not anticipating the future and not dragged down by the past, but also, this is the key point for awakening your higher senses, you got to deal with the stuff that you learn from your higher senses. You have to accept it, process it. You cannot deny it or fight against it. So literally, when people receive information from their higher senses that is non-rational and purely intuitive, And if it does not fit with your reality narrative, you're like, I am not allowed to think these thoughts. The heart closes. Literally, that's what it means to be closed-hearted. This is the central processing unit, CPU, of your being. I'm not a transhumanist ever, but it's a good analogy because all signals must go through your heart, going up and going down, hither, thither, and yon. Everything must go through your heart. So if you don't accept information, it means you close down some of what is being presented to you. And many different forms of social judgment can make a person close down the information that they are receiving. It could be anything from religious doctrine that says you're not allowed to see that, you're not allowed to know that, or you're a bad demonic person for seeing or thinking or knowing these things, or it can be a social inconvenience, like you're not allowed to say or know that thing about Uncle so-and-so, or about whatever, Mr. So-and-so, who's your principal, or principal so-and-so. And like, it could be an authority figure, it could be a family member, it could be someone that it's not convenient to think critical thoughts about, because you might perceive stuff from your higher senses that tells you someone is not safe, that someone is not good, or that they are malevolent, or that they are a psychopath, or that they have done bad, wrong, naughty, shameful, or evil things. And that's really important because when these impressions come to us from our higher senses, they come to us for survival purposes so that you can know who is safe and who is not safe. And it's not only your higher senses here in the center of your mind, but it's also, see where I'm pointing down here on this chakra diagram? Orange, the level in your pelvis. There's actually a direct connection between the size of the circles and the harmonics at the level of deep blue and the level of orange over here, and the way that they interlock as gears. And so what you can interpret that as in your own body, in your own light body, is the comprehension that your passions and your emotions on the human or animalistic mammalian level absolutely underpin your direct 2020 vision insights that come at the level of Christ consciousness or seeing through time and higher. And that these are two different types of ESP or extrasensory perception, where you are perceiving beyond the five senses rational world, beyond the level of materialism. Sometimes you just feel stuff and sometimes you just know stuff. So when you just feel stuff, that's coming from the level of the pelvis. And it's important to recognize that you might feel senses of mistrustfulness, and that is non-rational. And so you can tell who's lying and who's dangerous and who's untrustworthy from your guts. That's the level of the pelvis. It's not just your guts, your digestive organs. It's also the fascia that holds in your digestive organs and your reproductive organs. All of that energy is in your pelvis. And all of that energy is emotional truth. So now let's just define everything that this is. This foundation down here is the foundation of emotional truth, coming through the clearinghouse of your heart, which is unconditional love. And then with the higher senses, faculties that are up here, balanced on top of that beautiful pyramid. And that the emotional truth is focused by the senses that are up here. Like, it gives more detail, clarity, and focus to the more amorphous feeling states that you get from just your levels of emotion, okay? I want to talk about the partnership between violet and indigo, but first I want to talk about the way that humans have been, for many millennia, artificially cut off from access to these higher faculties. Like, I'm going to talk to you today a lot about awakening your light body and your higher senses. You could be like, Aurora, I'm a smart person. I ask questions like, well, why do I have to awaken this? How come I just didn't come here with this? Why do I have to do all this? What? I'm inflamed and angry. Why do I have to do all this hard work to awaken stuff, learn about stuff? And the answer is because humans have been effed with very badly many times throughout your history. And some of those effings included cutting you off from your higher faculties, because the faculties up here are how you can see the effery happening and prevent it from happening, and even go after the effers that are trying to do it against you, okay? So it was definitely a defanging, a neutering, blinding, a quite literal blinding, and a disempowerment, agenda of disempowerment against humanity. And you must effort in order to reclaim those faculties. But, and also, it's not just about reclaiming those faculties. You must gain the wisdom as you are awakening them to use them in the correct way. So really everything that is on your path of attainment to be able to attain those higher faculties, go back to my face for a little while, to go back to the functionality of those faculties is so that you will have the wisdom to know how to use them and how to respond to the information that is coming to you. So receiving information is one thing. How to interpret and then behaviorally act or respond to that information is another thing entirely. Like, let's say your higher faculties and your guts in your pelvis tell you, like, you see something and you're like, so and so is a bad person, or so and so is dangerous, or they're not trustworthy. How do you act in response to that? That's wisdom. All right, because information is one thing, but then what do you do with the information is the other thing, and it's not the same in every situation. There's not a one size fits all pronouncement. Always do this and never do this. And when you see this, always do this. Like, it's not like that. I'm sorry, I need to hydrate. You can tell I'm working very hard here. Not a one size fits all solution. And that is why it's essential as you're going through this process of awakening your higher faculties to gain access to your inner wisdom that is really an inner teacher. And everything that I attempt to do is to encourage you to connect to your inner teacher. So I, of course, am like a physical embodied person here in the world. I would count as what is known as outside of you. I'm external to your epidermis, but you have an innate divine intelligence and a connection to higher intelligence that is within you. And it's my encouragement that you will find your connection to that so that in each moment, as thoughts, impressions, imagery, sensory information comes to you from your higher senses, that you are then guided by your inner teacher to know what is the wisdom in the moment of how to apply that to your own reality. Because it will be different, like I said, in each circumstance, and it will be different amongst each person. So if you see such and such at one point in your life, and you calibrate to, oh, I will always do this. But then the next time you see such and such, that's not the right thing to do. Can't just go into a patterned behavior, even if it is self-arising. You must assess each time individually. What do I do in this moment? So each time you're not following a routine or a set of 10 commandments, you must follow what is correct in the moment. And this is the movement beyond traditional morality as presented in the human realm, which is the 10 commandments. Or if you're Jewish and you follow the Torah, the 613 commandments. Or if you're in another religion, I don't know how many commandments you have, but there's a certain number of always and nevers, and they write it in a book. Follow the recipe in the book, and that supposedly makes you a good person. Clearly, I'm being facetious. It does not make you a good person. It does make you a good rule follower, and you will be rewarded in the power structure if you do those things, but not within the larger cosmic power structure. And we are now moving beyond that, as there is an age of consciousness that we are moving out of. So each of the chakras of the body is an age of consciousness. And you've already, as humanity, moved through all of the chakras from red all the way up to deep blue indigo. But we are just now, over the past 2,000 years, going from deep blue indigo to violet up here. That little tiny transit, 2,000 years. But it's crucial transition to be able to make that transition, because the transition from an external authority figure, such as a pope, a king, a judge, a high school principal, mommy and daddy, to the inner authority that tells you, I do this because I feel it inside. That's the realm that we are coming into now. That is the realm of personal responsibility. And we can sing that song, Age of Aquarius. Age of responsibility. The age of personal responsibility, when it is not acceptable to simply say, I was following orders, or I did it because mommy and daddy told me, or I did it because my ancestors told me, or I did it because a book told me. I did it because I felt it was right. That is the level of personal responsibility that we are coming into, and that is necessary for not only achieving maturity in your light body, but also for becoming what is known as being a responsible galactic citizen and an ascended master. Okay. So right now, you are an infant of consciousness. You are not yet an adult. Accept it, revel in it. It doesn't mean that you have to be diapered or something like that. It just means that you are a little tiny baby and you're just learning about your body and your senses. So when you're a little tiny infant here, you're not expected to be productive or to even control your body yet. Mostly what you're doing is just figuring out like, oh, when I do this, my arm goes like this. And then when I do this, like my leg goes like this. And then when I do this, like my mouth sounds go like this. Like you spend time learning about your body, calibrating to what it can do, and even learning to organize your senses. Okay. So what I showed you with that chakra picture, that is literally your light body. But your light body is also comprised of and has direct physical analogs that I spoke about last week. Microtubuli, that's your light body. TNA, bridge of light in your light body. Retinas, brain, central nervous system, spine, nervous system, even like the fascia that are the coverings of your muscles. And talked about the fascia that surrounds like your intestines and your reproductive organs. This is all light body stuff. So your light body is partially the force field that's around you. And it's also your set of ideas, worldview, beliefs. It's also the dancingness of your DNA. And then it's also physical structures that we can see under a microscope or with our physical eyes, right? And all of those things you have been artificially separated from. The world of objective materialism is really the world of unconditional love and lower. Like that's the only stuff that we look at. We don't look at this stuff. We just look at this stuff. An artificial bifurcation, true, that has been the definition of humanity for a long time. And I've already said to you in this class, the reason why I call it full spectrum humans is because everything that I'm trying to teach people and exemplify with who I am is to make that bridge so that you're from red here. Grab a little, where's my sculpture? Right here. From red all the way up through all of your chakras to violet so that you encompass and define yourself as all of these things, not just red, which is physical, orange, which is mammalian, and yellow, which is intellectual, which has been the definition of humanity, like I said, for many millennia. And the reason for that is we talked about that beautiful teaching from Carlos Castaneda, the implantation of the predator's mind happens at the color yellow. So that means impulses that are coming from red and trying to go all the way up to divine intelligence get blocked off here. But similarly, information that is coming from higher intelligence trying to get through to your ego state gets blocked off as well. And the integration is the removal of those blockages so that that way you have full access to all of the layers of your being. And when you are that, then it means that you are a physical consciousness and you're aware of your presence and you know who you are and you have heart acceptance of all the signals that you're receiving, and you also have active higher faculties. You can see the potentials in time. You're not flying blind. You know where you're going, and you are divinely connected. You're connected to highest consciousness that is going to help you to know how to navigate all of these complexities and to figure out what is right in each circumstance and to figure out what is the customized custom fit outfit that you need to wear in each moment, as opposed to simply following a preset recipe or a set of rules, always and nevers, that kind of mechanically or like an automated form guide you through life. So this is the opposite of automation. You don't do it the same time, anytime. And you guys know how much I love and admire the musician John Coltrane. He was an excellent musician. And although he wrote a song, like he wrote a famous song called Giant Steps, he did not play it the same way every time. So you've got the way he played it this time, and then this version, and then this version, because every time he's going to play it, he's like, I'm not going to do it the same time. That would be boring. That would be repetitive, uninteresting. And also when you're really a true musician, you respond to the moment and you don't just follow the recipe of what you've always done. So completely the opposite of, let's say, a musician who has studied the works of Mozart, although Mozart is a great genius. There's lots of great musicians that have embodied that work. They play it the same way every time. And they do that on purpose. It's their thing. But that is not what I think is the most important thing in our world. I think it is most important to innovate because we are moving into time structures that don't have a precedent and have never been experienced before. And if all that you have are the recipes from before, and you have a bunch of ingredients that are totally new and innovative, you're like, what? How do I apply those recipes with these ingredients? The answer is can't. So you gotta innovate. So maybe a better example would be, Mozart was a genius for his time. They had just invented the piano. We're in music class now, everyone. It's great. Music history class. So before that, they had like the harpsichord and a couple of other things, but not really pianos that we know them as now, where you can play multiple notes at one time and you can hold and sustain notes. So Mozart was a genius of creation in his time because he was working with this wonderful new technology called the grand piano, and he wrote some really kick-ass songs with it. But now, something, we have different types of music making instruments now. Like I have this amazing piano keyboard that's kind of like a touch sensitive membrane that doesn't have like individual notes, like your fingers kind of slide along it. You can do all these cool in between notes. Mozart didn't have that. And so if you're only making the music that you imitate from technology from like 400 years ago, then there's a lot of stuff that you can't do that you can do now with higher capabilities of things that have been built. So you're missing out if you only play the patterns from 400 years ago. Synopsis is you must upgrade your capabilities as you're upgraded in time. It's not just about having greater levels of technology, because I'm not a lover of technology, even though I love my synthesizer. But we're talking about updated, augmented levels of potential and possibility. And you have to be like, oh, I'm in a new context now where you can do more stuff. So I have to innovate because there's more stuff available. And think about that. Like Torah was written over 5,000 years ago. And the people there 5,000 years ago had like limited access to stuff in their environment. We have access to more stuff that we can do. So the rules of 5,000 years ago don't necessarily apply directly to now. How about 2,000 years ago? Because 2,000 years ago, they started a whole religion based upon someone who was really quite extraordinary. But I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the rules that they wrote 2,000 years ago. And then, of course, those rules got changed, diluted, and distorted. So that necessarily doesn't apply as a direct recipe to who you are today. And people recognize this, and that's why I'm very clear to say I am not a biblical literalist, because a biblical literalist says, I believe in the rules that are written from 5,000 years ago and then updated 2,000 years ago with no current updates. And then it's very, very difficult to apply those rules to our modern world. And I don't think it's a sane or positive approach. You must be like, no, we're in a completely different context. Okay, so biblical literalism aside, I know because I know people in my class aren't really on that track. But how about responding as an ascending master? Think of yourself not as an ascended master, but in the process of ascending. You guys are good guys, claim it. You have the inevitability that you'll be an ascended master one day, but you are having to ascend within this context, facing challenges that none of the ascended masters from other times and places had to face. Like Jesus, the ascended master of 2,000 years ago, did not have to face like these telecommunication towers in his neighborhood. Did not have that problem in Nazareth. They did not have like a 5G tower in Nazareth. Just think about that. Or chemtrails over Nazareth, or whatever other things that might have been placed into the population in public health campaigns in Nazareth. None of those were his challenge, but those are our challenge, okay? So we can take some inspiration from him, just like taking inspiration from Mozart, but please apply it to your modern context or your current context, because if you don't, I don't know how you're going to be able to successfully reach your attainment, because you must recognize the very real challenges that you face in this time and place that are extraordinary and that are mostly technological, and that the Antichrist that you face now that is hardware, software, and worldview based is technological. And what other ascended masters faced was levels of evil and Antichrist that was non-technological and what we would call, dark magic. Even though I know Arthur C. Clarke said very famously that any sufficiently sophisticated technology, don't know how it works, you will simply categorize it as magic. And of course, the quote is much more pithy than the way I said it, but it's truthful. So the dark magic that we know of for hundreds of thousands of years can be conceived of and described to us in our modern world through the lens of technology. It is a type of technology, but it was not the same, again, as like telecommunications, microchips, cell phones, and other networked technology, even though all that stuff that we have definitely does mimic the world of dark magic and the distortion of life energies in the esoteric realm, the way that that's been practiced for many, many millennia. So there's parallels, there's analogs, but not exactly the same type of stuff. Okay, I have so many things that I want to say, but before I move onward, let me check out some of these questions or comments over here because I don't want to just going too fast. Okay, so Kim Rose, thank you for being here. Says, what do you think about me saying, quote, we are the Christ network that is ineffective. We are blocked and in straitjackets. Christ network is not full of psychopaths. It is infiltrated by psychopathic pretenders. Okay, this is sorry, it makes that AI thing. I don't know why it does that. I'm so sorry. Beautiful question, comment. And so let's talk about this because today I'm going to talk about not only extraterrestrials from your linear time perspective point of view as the origin of humanity, the sense that life was seeded on this planet that came from somewhere else. Now we're living here. Accurate, although reductionist. And also this planet as a jumping off point or a springboard that life will emerge from and evolve into what you call space races that you would experience in the linear future. Both of those things are truthful. But as we develop our higher faculties and our senses here, we recognize that we're not in a linear world. We're in a multifaceted world. Just like I told you in the lesson about dualism and having two eyes being different than the composite eye of a beautiful insect, when you become an adult being and you're not an infant of consciousness, you are not like a caterpillar, you're more like a butterfly, and butterflies have these types of eyes. Literally, they don't have eyes like we do. They have eyes like this, and they see multidimensionally. And you will start to see, oops, I knew it was going to roll away. Multidimensionally when you are an ascended master. So right now you're an infant of consciousness. One day you'll be a toddler of consciousness. Then you'll be like a not quite fully ascended, almost there, almost a teenager of consciousness. And then one day you'll be an ascended master. And I'll talk about what all of those stages look like. When you're an ascended master, then you will be able to see how you are the space races that are the origin or influencers of humanity. You are humanity. And then you are also the offspring or future evolutionary stages of what humanity will become. And it's not just one type of thing. Humanity will become many, many things. So my answer, hydrating. To your wonderful question, has to do with the sense of the benevolent Christ network of many different extraterrestrial or higher dimensional presences that come from linear time perspective, the past, and are supposed to be protecting our planet, but that failed and weren't protecting our planet, and bad things have come into our planet now, but also are imminently or have already come into our planet, time language, in ancient concurrent Atlantis, versus Christ consciousness as it will be because we emanated into the future, having ingested and mastered the lessons of this moment now, so that we will never get effed with again. And so that we move forward in a new, updated sense to be able to protect the galaxy and protect consciousness much more effectively. We are like the version of self that has come into contact with the type of pathogen and developed antibodies or effective immunoresponses to that pathogen, and we will never get infected with it again. In fact, we can eradicate the pathogen because we now not only see it and sense it, but we will not get inundated by it, and we can act before it becomes a problem. So in that contextualization, if I go back to your question, to say, we are the Christ network that is ineffective. More accurate to say that the Christ network that is ineffective is something that we emanate from as progeny, but we identify with the updated version that we are going to become as we get our SHIT stuff together. We get our stuff together, learn and grow and become more wise. To say that we are blocked and it's straitjackets. This is actually truthful, because we were supposed to be protected, both not only in ancient concurrent Atlantis, where you're supposed to have a protective force field around the planet so that bad stuff doesn't get to you. You're also supposed to have a protective force field around your solar system so that bad stuff doesn't get to you. You are supposed to have a protective force field around even larger, your galaxy, so that bad stuff doesn't get to you. All of those fail-safes failed. And then in your own body, both ancient and concurrent, you're supposed to have a protective force field around your own head that is supposed to keep out bad stuff, just like you have a microbial immune system in your own body. That failed. All right. And the truth is that this particular stuff has gotten into all of us who are here in this moment. That should never happen. That is actually one of the greatest traumas and disappointments I have ever had to experience. And I'm going to get super real with you now. That what happened in 2019, 2020, I think was the most difficult disappointment I've ever had, because I come from the Christ consciousness network. As Aurora, stellar impulse that I am, I'm deeply connected to, but not synonymous with Christ. And I want you to be connected to Christ. And I'll even read what I wrote in my notes and remind me if I forget. I'll read it verbatim. But because I didn't want to lose my train of thought. Darn it. Christ failed to protect this planet and failed to protect me in my flying rainbow lasagna genetic freedom. And that failure was like that movie, inconceivable, was inconceivable to me, because my definition of what Christ is that it is infallible and benevolent and divinely connected and hugely powerful and precognitive, meaning anticipatory. When you can see through time, when you have your higher faculties activated and you can see like one of these beautiful butterflies of time, then you should be able to anticipate any kind of bad stuff coming in the future. Like if I can see 1,000,000 miles down the road and I can tell there is some kind of traffic accident down there, I'm not going to plow into it full speed. I'm going to change roads or slow down or do something so that I don't have a massive problem. And something happened with the entirety of the galactic Christ network, that it did not effectively anticipate the things that were going to happen in our world right here within the past 5 years effectively enough to prevent that accident, or whatever, catastrophe is a better word, to prevent that consciousness catastrophe from happening. In coming here as Aurora, I know all about Christ consciousness. I know all about who they are, what's their jobs, what they're supposed to do, and they're supposed to stop that stuff from happening. So here I am, like imagine I'm driving my car or running along, everything's great, everything's great. And I'm like, things are getting to be not so great around here, but Christ consciousness is going to take care of that. Christ consciousness is going to take care of that. And Christ consciousness is not only like benevolent, galactic society, it's also the sun, the stars. I'm like, oh, they're going to take care of this stuff. They did not take care of that stuff. And that, I think, was the worst thing that I've ever had to think about or deal with, because it wasn't just that I got attacked as a result. in those moments of being attacked in like the early stages of the war that was, really becoming evident in 2020. It's not just being attacked in the war, but the sense of like, I'm supposed to have some kind of protective force field. Like, this is me pretending, but I'm like, wait, hello. I thought I was supposed to have a protective force field around me. What happened to that protective force field? What happened to all of these benevolent protectors? What happened to this big giant like army of goodness that's supposed to protect me from this step? And I'm like, they have to be there. I know they're there. What happened to them? Where in the F did they go? And then as things got really, really bad, I had to stop asking that question. And I had to just go into pragmatic survival, where I'm like, I don't know where the F they went or what the F happened, but I have to do something. And that is literally when I started to augment myself and start to take a different track and a different approach and go into hyper self-responsibility, because I'm like, okay, if no one else is going to take care of this, I'm going to take care of this. Even beyond the sense when I use my example of working at different workplaces in entry-level positions, I'm not just going to be like, I'll coil up the electrical cord because everybody else just threw it in the utility closet. No one else was doing their job around here. I'm going to do that, and then I'll get the promotion. I am doing it from that level of moderate, insouciant attitude, but I'm also doing it from a very, very strict level of pragmatism, practicality, and self-responsibility, which is to say, although I'm connected to this organization and I would like this organization to do this group, connected to a group. The group is supposed to do this. If the group doesn't do this, I'm going to do it as an individual, which is essential for me to do. I had to be uncompromising. And in that sense, I couldn't say, well, I'm connected to this group that's like, I'm in a band that's called Christ, and everyone is supposed to do their job. Nobody else did their job. So I'm like, okay, great. Nobody did their job. I'm not giving up. I'm not dying. I'm going to do my job and everybody else's job too. And that is pretty much what I have had to do. I bring this forward to you in order to say, first of all, very real, was very, very disappointed in that, because it's like when you really believe in someone or really admire and look up to someone, that is how I feel about Jesus Christ and about Christ, the multifaceted, overarching galactic presence. Really, like a lot of respect and admiration that I have had for that being, to the fact that to the point that I really expected it to totally protect this planet, and then that being failing in behavioral failure from that admired being, that was very devastating to me. And then also not just being disappointed in something or someone that I looked up to and expected to be functional, but the ramifications of that. Because here's what I know: Christ, the person, individual, and organization, is so benevolent and innately good that it would do anything, like a mother protecting its child, would do anything like a real fierce warrior. And if it failed or didn't protect us effectively, it is representative, symptomatic of much, much larger problems. It's not just I'm disappointed in Christ. It's more like this: I'm disappointed in Christ. And then also, if Christ failed, then it means a lot, look at my face, a lot of other bad stuff is happening. A lot of other things failed too. The fact that we have these things that are going on here right now is emblematic of failures at levels that you should never have failures. Imagine you have all of these systemic safety belts, safety nets, safety cutoff switches, safety this, safety that, and everything fails. And you have a giant explosion anyway. And you're looking at the readouts and you're like, how could this fail? How could this fail? How could this fail? Like, God is pretty amazing and genius in the way that the architecture of reality is structured to prevent these things. You're like, all of these innate systemic fail-safe mechanisms all failed. Like, how in the world could this happen? And I had to move beyond that level of disbelief. Again, my heart had to go into acceptance instead of denial. As I'm seeing a bunch of seemingly impossible, inconceivable stuff happening, I had to be like, okay, even though it's very inconvenient, I have to recognize and accept that this is happening. And I have to act then upon it. So a lot of things happen that never should have happened. And then I've had to respond to it. Let me read from my notes, because this is what I want you to know about me. Hold on, I'm going to make these ridiculous faces as I squint and scroll. Sorry. I know I'll find it. It's so hard for me to read, and it's so hard for me to squint and scroll. It's impossible. I'm so sorry. Maybe I should just pause for a moment to see if I can find this. Hold on, because I also feel under pressure. Just pausing. Sorry, guys, for taking time to scroll and to try to find this. So in my notes, what I write about here is the part where I talk about beginning the limitations of the past 2,000 years, what's been going on when you're going from the indigo chakra to the crown chakra over here. It's not my intention to separate you from Christ. So what I'm saying is that no longer uh, um, I'm having so much difficulty because also reading and squinting at this has been so disruptive to my life body that like I can't even keep my mind straight. But basically, it has never been my intention to separate any one of you from your admiration of or guidance from Christ, but instead to reconnect you to your inner teacher. Here's where I say it in the notes, as opposed to the external rules of the church and religion telling you what to do each day. And I wrote, just to be clear, this is not a denial of Christ or Jesus, but is an embracing of his or their internal living presence as your teacher and guide, along with the abstract energy of God, the divine source. Good. That was what I needed to get through. So thank you for allowing me that like torturous attempt to read my notes. Never my intention as Aurora to say in some Luciferian devilish way, like, stop believing in all that Jesus nonsense, reject it all. No, that is not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that there were things that were possibly appropriate for your levels of human development over the past 2,000 years to listen to the guidance of an external authority figure or their teachings or their writings, but not now. Now, what is most effective and important is not to follow a recipe of what it means to be a good person, but instead to be connected to the inner teacher that teaches you how you are a good person. So being a good person is like a generic thing, like wear, the outfit, the unitard of a good person, right? Like this is what a good person is shaped like. And I'm like, no, like each one of you is different and unique, and you have to have your unique set of clothing. What does being a good person look like for you? And the way that you learn about that is by connecting to your own inner teacher. And your inner teacher is this higher connection or thought connection to a higher level of reality that guides your mind. So the idea of your pineal gland, your Christ chakra, and specifically the way that the Christ chakra and the violet chakra intercommunicate is to guide your mind. And the problems with Antichrist technology is that it not only misguides your mind, it makes you ingest false light. So when your mind is guided by Christ and the crown, which is your connection to divine intelligence, it tells you, like, look over here, read that book, or learn about this, or think that thought, or talk to that person. And it is unique to each person what you're supposed to be looking at. But when Antichrist technology is empowered or is present, it either distracts you away from that true story of true light, or turns your head in the wrong direction, turns your attention in the wrong direction, and makes you look at something that is either junk food or unhealthy for you at that moment, or erroneous in total, or gives you wrong implications in that moment, information out of place, and misguides you. And that if that is done enough, a person becomes full of false light, false impressions, erroneous presumptions about the world, and brings a person away from the central core timeline, away from their journey and path as an ascended master, and actually closer to death, closer to the membrane of death. And this is why I call a lot of the Jesus teachings in our world death cult teachings that I would not encourage you to follow, not because I'm a devil or a Lucifer or any kind of thing like that, but because it's going to make you die. I'm actually a really good person who doesn't want you to die. And when you follow teachings that are about the necessity of suffering, the necessity of self-sacrifice, the necessity of martyrdom, following in the footsteps of your hero to martyr yourself, and or that you have to die in order to go to heaven, you are following false light teachings that bring you closer to death. And the most revolutionary thing that I'm trying to tell you is not to reject Christ or his presence or any kind of those types of things, but just to simply think the thought that you don't have to die. That's the most revolutionary thing. And if that means that you have to throw your whole religion out the window, you have to reassess your religion, because your religion is telling you you have to die in order to be a good person. And I'm telling you, no, actually, not dying makes you a good person. And some of this is recontextualization after 2001. Everything after 2001 changes because you don't have to die anymore. In 2001, the flying rainbow lasagna was invented, created, and innovated. You have a new pathway, a new recipe, and not only a new recipe, but a new ability to write new recipes. You could think of flying rainbow lasagna like it's not just pasta, it's not just lasagna, it's a pasta machine. You can make any shape of pasta. You can make linguine. You can make wagon wheels. You can make anything. We're talking about the capacity to generate new genetic behavior, new reality structures, all sorts of new things that weren't possible before. Maybe in the past it was necessary to die. Maybe in the past it was necessary to do certain things and do your spiritual journey in certain ways, and then death would happen, and your attainment would happen upon death. Maybe. But definitely, that is not necessary now. That is what I can tell you. And so there's a lot of great things about the teacher from 2,000 years ago. I've told you about my outright admiration for the Christ Consciousness Network and my devastating disappointment when Christ Consciousness did not protect its planet. You must recognize that, because look, even if you really love someone, like your husband, partner, whatever, you love them a lot, but you send them out, go to the store and like do something important. Like you need to buy milk, eggs, butter, and then come home, we're going to make dinner. And you send them out and they don't do it. And then they never come home. You have to be like, I really love this person, but something really bad must have happened to that very, very loving and devoted partner if I sent them out to the store and not only did they not come back with vital ingredients, but they never came back at all. That's the only thing that I can presume about Christ consciousness. And I have to presume it because so much of this stuff, Antichrist hardware and software, is evident in this world that since 2020, for the past 5 years, it's been almost impossible to get a clear view of what is going on. So you also guys have to know that, like when I talk about those beautiful videos from 10 years ago, and I like to go back into my whiteboards and things like that, because that was from a much cleaner time before a lot of this Antichrist stuff is here, polluting the ability to see and know clearly. So I can only say to you that, like you, I have been in this world that has been inundated with a series of Antichrist satellites and other frequency emitting weaponry, including sometimes it is implanted in other walking, talking, formerly biological humans, that is diminishing capacity to have active higher faculties, have your correct divine intelligence connection, and guide yourself effectively. In fact, what used to be possible in the time that I did the original whiteboards and wrote those notes is not possible now. You have to have a completely different approach. So not only do you have to have an updated approach from 2,000 years ago, you got to have an updated approach from 5 years ago, because this world is so crapped up and it takes an enormous amount of muscle power, like your inner attention power, to be able to reach your attainment. So in my notes from 10 years ago, I talk about how you can say, no, thank you. And how I used to navigate distractive, unproductive thoughts. So before the deployment of Antichrist hardware in this world, I found it easier to be in control of my mind. And I would watch and notice my mind during my day. And when my tendril of attention started to go into non-life affirming directions towards the membrane of death, I would reel it back in, erase the realities that I was participating in, go back on track, and re-intend for my attention to go onto the optimum timelines and reality structures that I wanted to be on. But 5 years ago, things changed radically. And it was no longer possible for me to use my free will to just simply go onto the timelines I want. Think my thoughts the way I want to think my thoughts. There became an Antichrist form of technological mind control. And the control of the attention and of the mind is perforce a control of your direction through time and your DNA behavior. And it is anti-divinity to do that. Because when you take away someone's free will and you make it so that they cannot even think correctly or align with these possibilities, then it means you're disconnecting them from divinity. And you can also comprehend that some of these things that are technological antichrist adjuvants were developed specifically by technologists and objective materialist scientists to affect the body in a way that would disconnect people from divine thought and divine intelligence. And it was originally a funvax, F-U-N-V-A-X, that was created, look this up, by DARPA to supposedly rein in, religious fundamentalists living in caves in Afghanistan, like being supremely sarcastic here. And yeah, they were gonna sprinkle it upon those jihadists to prevent them from believing in God, because supposedly they were all gonna hijack planes with box coders because they believed in this violent version of God. I mean, even saying that, I don't even have to exaggerate it with too much sarcasm. Sounds insane. Sounds like an insane thing to do, but that is the level of antichrist and insanity that we face in our world, especially from leaders and government officials. So they have literally created a form of antichrist injectable pollution that was intended to diminish the neurological centers in a person's brain that are responsible for the sense of true divine connection, and also to diminish genetic behaviors that give you your divine connection, to cut you off from God. And this is, the latest trauma. It's not the original trauma, because there's the original trauma, which you would remember as what happened in ancient or concurrent Atlantis, but there's also what happened in ancient Sumeria, which is roughly 5,000 years ago, which is known as the beginning of human history, which is pretty much when the origin of the Torah and Judeo-Christianity came from. And it was completely a genetic modification of human form in this world of mortality that disconnected people from divinity. So the truth is, you got disconnected from divinity and came into this world of denser matter and mortality. But even in a world where death existed or was experienced, you still had more divine connection than you have now. And it is possible to walk through the world, even in a state of, having a mortal body, a flesh body, having to eat physical food, and to be divinely connected. That is possible. And then to achieve these levels of reattainment of light speed without interference and, to do your ascension. But what happened 5,000 years ago was a profound trauma of disconnection. That is also the implantation of the rational mind, the implantation of the predator's mind, the creation of money in the world, the creation of religion in the world, like money, worship, agriculture, quote unquote, civilization, a lot of bullcrap, all of those things come from that moment of disconnection that was sort of the original trauma of taking people away from their divinity, and then the definition of what it is to be a human, which is like to be a Roomba robot. Like, you're blind, you don't know what the F you're doing, you're just going around bumping into things, and then you bump, and then you turn in the next direction, you bump in the next direction, and that is not what being a human is. Brief pause, because someone special just arrived. I don't know if you can see her back here. Cheeky just arrived. She just got out of bed. Princess Cheeky's doing great. I'm telling you, I have her set up in the other room where she's got a little bed right in front of the AC fan, and she just kind of sits there and cold air blowing on her during the day. So she's doing great, and we'll see if I need to give her any bribes. We'll just have a little moment's pause, but hold on a moment here. Okay. We'll hold off on giving her any bribes. She's listening. First, let's talk about attention. Attention comes from the Greek word attenuos. It means to reach out. As you're in this process of reawakening your higher faculties, what you first need to do is create enough gas in your car or petrol for your car to actually go. Or you can consider me to be a business mentor. I am a business mentor. I'm a small business person in physical reality here. Like I've run many businesses and I definitely know how to do this type of thing that people call bootstrapping. And that is where you start off with making a product or doing a service, and you just have a small amount of initial resources. And as you earn more, you're then able to take your profits and get more equipment and expand your business. And then you're able to do more, perform more, or create more, get more clientele, and then create a bigger business. And then at a certain point, you are up and running, like you're sustainable. You can do more. That is exactly what the process of getting your higher faculties back online is about. And we'll go through the experience of like infancy through toddlerhood, through young adulthood, into adulthood and ascended mastery. But from the sense of like, how do you kind of jumpstart the mind? How do you get it going? The first, as if for the first time in this lifetime or in this experience for you, the first thing you must do is, we already did our lesson, mastering the mind, meditation. And meditation is basically getting gas in your car, the ability to create inner silence. The genetic modifications from many thousands of years ago amount to the installation of the verbalized mind, remember the predator's mind, but not only a verbalized mind, also a series of tendencies or postures that have to do with like fearfulness and greed and avarice and cruelty and, you know, sociopathy, doing bad stuff to others, and uncaringness. So it's not just words in your mind, but it's words plus some of those values that I just represented. And meditation and mastering your mind is about just beginning to get some distance between yourself and the verbalized mind so that you can perceive what is going on. So initially, the verbalized mind is installed in infancy here, and then you have it going for however many years with no off button throughout the levels of self-description. That is when you build your own ego and you say, this is who I am in the world. And you've got the talking mind going in your mind the whole entire time. It is essential to turn off the talking mind so that you can learn to redefine yourself beyond who you are when the mind is talking. And the mind, words are inherently flawed because they come from this inherently flawed predatorial mindset. And when you turn off that mind and get away from those values, get some perspective from those values, you're like, that's not the real me. This is the real me. So meditation, mindfulness, or inner silence is necessary muscle to develop so that way you can at least first begin with creating a foundation of unconditional love upon which the higher faculties rest. And that's this drawing right here. Meditation creates this force field that emanates from right here. This is your heart. And then it creates this perfect like cleft. And then within there are the wheels of your higher faculties that kind of go around like a track, like whatever, Hot Wheels or something like that. And then you can also see this violet chakra and the way that it complements these energy fields. So you have the plateau of unconditional love. Then I often skip over it, but there is really, really necessary. Your throat chakra is authenticity. Think of this as truth, truthfulness. Because people think about communication, they think about in terms of lies. Cannot have any of these higher faculties based upon lies, because that's like building a house on a bad foundation. It has to be based in truth and authenticity. So there's unconditional love, truth, authenticity, and then on top of there is your insight and your connection to time. And then on top of there is your connection to divinity. And all of these things work together just in the same way that your heart and lungs work together. Your heart beats and pumps around all the beautiful oxygen that your lungs bring into your body. These two things are partners. Your insight and your crown chakra are partners, and they have a complementary 90-degree formation. In the most abstract sense, you can get a sense of like, one is a wheel that's going like this, and one is a wheel that is going like this. And that is exactly why in art history, angels are presented with a halo. The halo is the representation of the crown chakra and the violet chakra. And what it does is creates a stabilization of your attention. And I was finishing saying how your attention emanates from your heart. More accurately, you have to have enough heart energy to grow this tendril of attention. So you have to get kind of like your meditation energy going. You have to get your resources together and get enough energy to build this tendril. So this tendril, and I usually use this little pen as an example of it, it reaches out and it reaches out and it quests. That's why questions are called questions, because you are questing. You don't know. So it's kind of like kind of like an elephant's trunk. Like, you know, it touches on things. So if you want to know about something, you're going to reach out with your mind and you're going to touch on it. So I have this, you know, this fern that's behind my computer screen over here. I always talk about my beautiful fern. One day I should show you a picture because it's so big at this point. But if I want to know about a fern, what I would do, I wouldn't go to Wikipedia and look up ferns and read about it. No, I would reach out with my mind. I would reach out with my tendril of attention, not my hand, but I would touch on it with my mind. It means I would look at it. I would sense it. I would feel it and feel the energy of it. And I would get impressions about its truth and its functionality and its truthful nature from my direct interaction with it. It's not an intellectual proposal. None of this is intellectual. All of this is esoteric and post-rational or beyond rationalism. And I might learn things that I could read about in like a botany textbook, but I might also learn things that are strictly experiential or from the viewpoint of a plant that I couldn't learn about by touching upon it. And literally, this is how we are meant to learn from our world. We're supposed to be in a highly cataloged, beautiful library of consciousness, and we go around touching on things with our mind in our environment and learning from that direct experience. That is what it is like when you are awakened in your light body, literate, and you walk through a pristine forest. You are being presented with information that is not information in a library, in a book. It's information in the world. Very few of you have that experience because very few of us have access to pristine forests. Like, I don't know if they even exist anymore or if you could get to them, but mostly you're walking around in like urban environments and you're lucky if you have, you know, a little garden or something like that. And the plants that are growing there, it's not the same as like highly organized plants in a natural environment. Because when you're in a natural environment, like literally the way that leaves fall off of the trees and make the leaf litter on the ground is information, non-random. And the way that ants are crawling up and down a tree's out exterior is information. And then when a bird goes on a particular limb and goes like, tweet, tweet, I'm a bird, like that's information. And very few of us have that experience. So first you have to comprehend that in much like in the way that like indigenous nomads, like they can't just walk around being indigenous nomads anymore because you can't live like that because the environment doesn't exist. Very, very difficult for us to learn from our environment because these pristine, unspoiled, natural places don't always exist. And also because the signal to noise ratio is so low because this stuff is noise. It's not information. It's dumbformation. It's doo-doos. It's not truth. And it's one of the hardest things in the world to develop in this untruthful world. So once again, I have already done my levels of development. I have already gone through these levels of wisdom accrual and muscle building and consciousness refinement in another time place. So I come here with these skills and with this knowledge, and I'm not learning this for the first time. And so that gives me acceleration that makes things more possible for me that are almost impossible for you. That's why I do what I do. It's why I make my artwork and my music and talk about things like this with you, with my flapping of my moving mouth parts, to give you guys an effing chance, because otherwise I have almost nothing truthful to reach out with your tendril of attention and learn from. And again, I am honored if you reach out with your tendril of attention and watch my class that's 3 hours long and learn from me. But everything about what I am giving to you is in the hopes of getting you so that you can then teach yourself with your own inner teacher. And so I want to teach you about your librarian, because your violet chakra is directly analogous to your librarian. And your librarian has an analog in your DNA that is a molecule that's called the proofreader that you can read about. It's cool. And eating broccoli actually helps your proofreader, or you can take organic sulfur compounds, which I do too. The proofreader goes, like if my arm is DNA, proofreader goes all up and down your DNA looking for transcriptional errors. And it does that throughout your whole entire body. You've got these proofreaders that are looking to see anything spelled wrong, anything mistakes. If there's mistakes, we need to fix it. And broccoli helps. It kind of escorts the mistakes out of the body. And sulfur compounds also help. Also, drinking structured water helps. And also things that create transcriptional errors or mutations and problems in DNA are things to avoid. Some of those would be some of the things to avoid. But also exposure to certain frequencies. Antichrist frequencies are things you would want to avoid. And a lot of those Antichrist frequencies emanate from hardware in our world. None of this is by accident. Do you know that some of these Antichrist companies are actually like, let's make our hardware as Antichrist as possible? Yeah, there's some very, very bad, wrong, and evil people that are at the foundation of some of those technological companies that intentionally create Antichrist technology, not by accident. Even if we go back to the origins of electricity, when electricity in the 1800s was being popularized for industrial purposes and for personal uses, humanity made a choice, AC or DC. And the AC current that was decided upon by the social power structures was intentionally tuned. So DC is just electricity, like music, 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 right? Like just going along like music. And AC has like a beat, a pulse. It alternates. It's on, it's off, does stuff. They intentionally made that beat and that pulse to be an Antichrist pulse. Anti-consciousness, stuff that makes it harder for you to connect to God and think for yourself. Totally, totally deep stuff. And that's, of course, from hundreds of years ago. But when you extrapolate that to the modern technocracy, most of the people who are elevated to power in the modern technocracy are, whoops, I'm dropping things. That was important. Hold on. Let's rescue that lasagna. Don't worry, it takes a licking, keeps on ticking. But most of the people that are elevated to powers within the technocracy are elevated for the reason that they are Antichrist. They are Antichrist, and they're very, very happy to fine-tune their offerings to the world so that it impedes human neurology, impedes human cognitive processes, impedes the true expression of DNA behavior, and definitely prevents humans from connecting to divine consciousness and their own higher consciousness, all expressly for the purposes of disempowerment. Because you guys are all too, I don't know what the word is, you're all too a little saucy and thinking too much of yourself. Who do you think you are? And time to squash you down and make you forget who you are. Past 5 years, it's been an effort worldwide to make people forget that you are powerful divine creatures and that you have these inner capacitations and that you can really do a lot in reality. And also that you do not require technology to do the things that you do in reality. So we need to talk about what are psychic powers. Let's do that. I'll get to your questions. But let me, because as I was going through my notes last night, I was like, how can I tell these people what psychic powers are? Because in my notes, I talk about clairvoyance and clairaudience. But you have so many other options, and I don't want you to think that those are your only options. So let me hydrate a little bit, and then let's talk about what your psychic gifts can be. So, clearly you guys can tell that I'm clairvoyant. This dress that I'm wearing, it's actually from that piece that's on the wall there, is even from a series that I'm calling Clairsentience. So the clairs. When you're clairvoyant, it means you see with your inner vision. When you are clairaudient, it means you hear your inner insight. Those are two levels of the awakening of your light body that have direct analogs to your physical five senses. But there are many analogs that can't exist because you can't do this with your five senses. All right. So I see things with my inner vision and have since I first came here as Aurora. Very first things that I did, even before I was articulate and verbal and able to share and talk in that way, is get notebooks and draw pictures. And that's why I do my little card series called Aurora's Message to Humanity, because those drawings were very pure and very just amazing. Some of them might just look like not that sophisticated, but they contain a lot of very truthful information. And so I made that little deck of cards to be able to share some of these little drawings out of my initial sketchbooks. And I'll also tell you that the world that I see with my inner vision, it's almost impossible to translate through my artistic skills, even though I've gained in artistic skills over the 20 plus years that I've been here. Like I've learned all about different types of paint and pencils and pigments. And I've learned about all different sorts of ways to make things and to create tips of the trade, like how artists, like when I was teaching you in art class last week about when you put a shadow underneath something and it makes it sit down, like how to create formfulness, the illusions of formfulness within a two-dimensional structure, or how to create motion when you're actually not creating an animation, you're just working with optical illusions and the vibrations of different colors. I learned how to do all of that. I didn't come here with those skills. So I had to learn, like, basically, how do I translate what I see with my inner eye through physical objects and materials that are here in a way that other people can perceive it. All right. That was the first thing. How do I do that? And my motivation. Why do I do that? The answer is because I'm a visionary. I see with inner vision, and I consider it my cosmic job, like my cosmic job joy that I'm so happy to do, to translate what I see so that you guys can see it. But not just because I'm like, here's a weird thing that you guys can look at. It has no relevance to your life. No, so that I can say, here's a thing that I can see. It's a landscape that I went to, a place that I actually went to with my mind, and I want to show it to you because I think you're going to go there too one day. And I think that showing it to you is going to inspire you to do the inner work and do the levels of wisdom, accrual, and self-attainment that it takes to be able to see that place. And then when you see that place, you're going to have an affirmation or feel confirmed because I already showed it to you in a painting. And when you see it in your inner world, you're not going to be like, well, that's a stupid fantasy, or that's not meaningful, or throw that out the window. You're going to be like, what? That looks exactly like something that Aurora painted. And I think that there's something there. And I think that there's something important there. And I think I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to reach out with my tendril of attention to that thing. So I'm very, very honored when people look at my artwork and not only look at it as a dead, static image, but reach out with your tendril of attention. The same way that I reach out to this little plant over here to learn what the essence of plantiness is. Please reach out to my artwork. Put your tendril of attention on it and feel everything that I put into it. Because I want you to know also, like when I paint, I'm not just painting with dead, stupid pigments. I very, very intentionally put information, higher dimensional formfulness into it. And that's why my paintings are valuable. They're not just like an image. When you stand in front of that painting, it's telling you all sorts of stuff beyond physical words. And some of my paintings, like the ones behind me here, actually have crystals embedded in them. So they're like activated in that way. Others of them, I do different singing and different forms of expression while I'm in the process of painting it. And the paintings themselves are like a time record of, an overlap, time lapse of all the things that I put into a particular painting. So when you look at it, you're getting like washed over with a tsunami of all of that energy that I put into that painting very, very intentionally. And it's meant to encourage you, to educate you, and to turn your face in the right direction so that you won't pay attention to the stupid, misguiding, and distracting things in your world, but you will pay attention to the things that are important that can guide you towards ascended mastery and eternal life. Okay, so let's talk about distraction or mental junk food. Mental junk food can be stuff that's like judgmental thoughts. It's not that it's wrong, evil, blah, blah, blah. It's that it just does not feed your soul. And so that's how you kind of move beyond inner judgment. When your mind has the opportunity to choose, like, would I like to do this with my mind or would I like to do this with my mind? Just move away from these thoughts. And those are basically the judgmental thoughts of like, those people are so wrong, they're so bad, I'm better than them, I would do it differently, nanny poo-poo on you, like all of that. Like, it's true, but you just don't want to be marinating in all of that. You really can be much more productive if you take your mental energy and your attention and you attenuate to the things that you want to be, the things that you are in alignment with, the concepts that you agree with, all right? There's also distractions. And of most of the things that I'm putting in this category are the things that you will see popularized in the human world. They're the things that you will see in movies. They're the things that you'll see in TV, and especially the things now that you will see in social media, whatever, alternative news sites and all those different types of places, largely distractive, largely uninforming junk food of the mind. And sometimes you can say, no, thank you. Like, no, thank you. I don't want to look at this stuff. It's not interesting to me. I want to look at this stuff over here. But sometimes things are forced into your mind against your free will. And then it's like being force fed, whatever, some kind of Doritos or something that's junk food. Like, you're like, I don't want this, but it's coming into my mind anyway. And that is its own sense of assault on your soul. And that's really what I've been experiencing for the past 5 years, because I told you, I'm already very, very adept and very, very good at focusing my mind and attenuating to the things that are interesting to me and that I want to consume and that I want to ingest and that I am in alignment with. And what I've experienced over the past 5 years has been a crime. And if it's that bad for me, it's even worse for you, because not that I'm condescending to you, but it's like, you guys don't even know what real food is. And they are forcing you to eat Doritos. And you're like, well, like, this doesn't really taste that good, and it gives me a tummy ache, but I'm having to eat this. When I say that, I'm talking about propaganda, untruthful news reports, fake bullcrapola about anything, about the true nature of reality. So some of it might be about politics and other forms of, social engineering. But some of it might be about like, God and the nature of time and the nature of your body and the nature of anatomy. Like, oh, none of that stuff is true. And it's being forced into your mind, largely against your willpower. And that's the antithesis of being able to walk around in the world and be naturally guided by your inner teacher that tells you truthful things about the cosmos. So that way you go away from the membrane of death and you stay alive. They're telling you not only distractive things, but outright lies and things that are very anti-life. And that will cause a cessation of body processes and will cause your physical death. And it's definitely, you're not just being like distracted to death, you're actively being lied to and told things that aren't truthful and to behave in ways that will actively kill you. And all of that is really terrible stuff. Moving away from those distractions requires a huge effort of willpower and a huge constant effort of self-purging or cleansing or taking stuff out. Be like, I don't believe that, I don't believe that, I don't believe that. And the latest thing is garbage dumps in your dreams. where you go to sleep at night. And of course, that's when you relinquish your willpower. He's like, so tired of using my willpower all day long. I just have to relax for about 8 hours. And during that 8 hours, the evil ones are like, ooh, you're relaxing your mind. Great. I'm going to garbage dump in your mind. I'm going to distort your DNA, give you all sorts of crazy crapola in your mind. And then you wake up, you'll be all full of garbage. And you have to spend a little while just kind of recalibrating and clearing out the trash before you get going on your day. Because that's what, like, the first hour of my day before I get out of bed in the morning, I just spend time just taking out the trash, cleaning out things that they try to implant in me at night. And I know I'm not the only one. And all of that is from horrible, artificial, Antichrist things that never were in our environment for the past 5 years, and that other ascended masters didn't have to face in previous thousands of years. And that is just, terrible. It's a crime that is going on. And then you can also see why I exist here, in order to be able to give you clarity and guidance, because there's so much unclarity and non-guidance. I didn't get through all the different types of psychic gifts that you could have. I got onto too much of a rant. Let's rewind, go back to, because I was talking about visionary stuff and seeing. But I also hear stuff. And some of what I hear, of course, can be translated as verbalization, but often I hear tones and music and melodies, and that's my work as a musician. Let's talk about the distinction between regular telepathy that is based in love and synthetic telepathy. Huge for you to master this. You want to ascend and not die, gotta master this. So genuine telepathy is based in the resonance of love. We do not use any stinking technology to accomplish this. When you have genuine telepathy, you have created enough light. You have used your wisdom. You have gotten enough gas in your car, and you do not use technological mind amplification. You are able to amplify your mind to talk to people who are non-local in space and time. That means I can talk to someone, I live in California, who lives in Great Britain or Australia in 2025, right? That's someone who is non-local in space. I can also talk to someone who's non-local in time. With my mind ability, I can talk to someone from 2,000 years ago or 20,000 years in the future. And when I start to talk about that, and I say that your telepathy is like a time phone, and I also tell you that the extraterrestrial, extra-dimensionals that created and seeded life here in our world and influenced and genetically modified life, you can talk to those guys, and you can talk to other different versions of yourself that live in other concurrent time places, and you can also talk to the future. And all of these things, when you are a butterfly of consciousness with a multidimensional time eye, weave together beautifully and have causality structures that are harmonic and complementary. So when you think about linear time, you think, first I make the dough, then I put it in the oven, and then the cupcakes come out at the end, right? First this, then this, then this. But when you are multidimensional, sometimes something has already come out of the oven and you haven't even made the dough for it yet. You're like, my brain is exploding, Aurora. I'm sad now. Don't explode your brain. That's your rational intellect down here. Just be like, there, rational intellect. Like, you can't possibly comprehend this. Shut up. Just be quiet now. No, I'm serious. You can tell yourself to shut up in a nice way. Just be quiet down, rational intellect. And let's just let these signals come through my heart. All right? Don't talk for a little while. Let these signals come through my heart. And let me just feel and know on this level what is happening in terms of time causality. Now, I'm going to share things with you that I haven't shared, I don't think, in any other semester, because this is really relevant to, like, if you guys have read my little comic book and the things that I was talking about there, and I would encourage everyone to read it. The sense of negative time potentials being destroyed by the activities of what I am doing right here now. That if we can look at some of the very pathogenic and diseased minds of this time and place as emanating the pathogenic and diseased extraterrestrials and races, for lack of a better word, that will emanate into the future, then sorry, I can't even grammatically finish that sentence. Let's start again. You can prevent a lot of negative future stuff by destroying the origins of that future stuff here and now. let's use as the example the space race that people know as the Greys, gray aliens. And the gray aliens are actually an offshoot outgrowth, or I don't want to say evolutionary, but like a developmental stage of what happens to some groups of humans who have taken this type of stuff a lot. That the end result of the transformation of the human biology is creation of a physical presence that is addicted to technology and cannot exist without a complete requirement of technology all around it. And by that, I mean for perception, respiration, digestion or nourishment and sustenance, even reproduction and consciousness sustenance like life support is all technological. So when you look at the Greys, please comprehend that those are a far future offshoot offspring of humans. You would be like whatever, like their version of like profound antiquity ancestors, but they become so screwed up because of all these things that take away their immune system. One of the great problems with this is that it is destroying human immune systems. And I hope that there's not a problem with me being able to talk about this, because sometimes my videos would be suppressed if I say the wrong thing. But let's just say that throughout past 200 years, since microbes were recognized and immunology has been explored by human scientists, humans recognized that the common cold continued to exist because it was ever-changing. And there's not a way to be able to create a protection from the common cold because it's different every year. And that was just quote unquote common sense. Everybody knew that. Every year it's different. It's a different recipe every year. So if you make something that is in immunity recipe, that is for the common cold of last year, it doesn't work for the common cold of this year. In fact, the common cold is a devastatingly effective strategy in terms of a semi-biological, like life form or whatever we would call it, because what it does is it capitalizes upon the hemispheric changes in your planet. Like everyone knows, you get the common cold in the winter. You don't get it in the summer. Now, forget about the past 5 years. Just don't talk about that for right now. But before the past 5 years, do you guys remember, and can you remember, nobody gets a cold in the summertime. When do you get a cold, guys? Get it in the wintertime. And what happens? What happens is there's not a lot of sunlight. And also in the wintertime, everybody's having all of these like sugary treats around Christmas time and whatnot. So basically not the best nutrition, not enough adequate vitamin D, not a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables like citrus and stuff like that gives you all the vitamin C. And then people's immunity, their sense of hopefulness, like people get more depressed. Immunity and like enthusiasm are connected. Like people are less enthusiastic in the wintertime because they feel more blah, because it's cold and it feels gross outside and you want to stay inside under a blanket. Like all these things equate to not having a very strong immune system, protective force field around you, and then you feel sick, get these little things from other people. That's seemingly normal. And of course, I just described winter, but winter in the northern hemisphere is summer in the southern hemisphere. So I know I wouldn't name you by names. I never want to whatever, share personal information about anyone, but we have lovely people in this class right now who live in Australia. So right now it's summertime for me, winter time for you guys. You guys right now need to have some orange juice and vitamin C, check your immune systems. But yeah, we're doing great because we've got summertime here. But in 6 months, it will be inverted. And in 6 months, my community is going to be everybody who's going to be coughing and sneezing, right? And getting all of the symptoms of needing to have more sunlight and more vitamin C and all those things. Everyone in Australia will be very, very happy, all right? So what I'm trying to say with all my silliness here is that the strategy for the organism or creature that we know as the common cold was very devastatingly effective in that it didn't just go away when people would conquer it. It would go to the other side of the world. when people are vulnerable in the wintertime. And then when they become strong again and their immune systems become strong again, go to the other side of the world and lodge within the people that are vulnerable at that time, because the common cold requires a host. It can't just stand there with its butt hanging in the air, floating around. It can't do that. It needs to live inside of a living creature. So it does timeshare, half of the time in the United States, half of the time in Australia, and flying back and forth between these various different places. Truly. Of course, what you are facing right now with the worldwide everything that happened in 2020, that is not what has gone on in terms of the disease that is the common cold for many, many years. I bring all this up because everybody knew you couldn't create an effective inoculation against the common cold because it changes every year. This is literally something that you would read about before 5 years ago and before many aspects of information sanitized from our world. So it might be hard for you to research this. That is why I go out on a limb to dangerously remind everyone, Pepperidge Farm remembers. Remember when it was simply known, this is what everyone would say. They would say, if they can put a man on the moon, how come they can't fix the common cold? And then as I say that, many awake people would be like, oh, wait, Aurora, that was Stanley Kubrick. They didn't put a man on the moon. I'm like, I know, but that was what people would say. All right, so just know that's what people would say. But the great disappointment in modern science that simply couldn't figure out a way to prevent people from getting sick every winter. And the answer is that it's because it's an ever-shifting, ever-updating thing that makes people sick. And also that the thing that makes people sick is directly related to your consciousness being upgraded. Like you have to continually grow and evolve your immune system each year in order to keep on being here, okay? So now we're talking about the grays. Let's just say we're talking about fiction here. We're talking about a science fiction novel that involves aliens called the Greys. And in the science fiction novel, the people decided they didn't like getting colds every winter, and they decided to change their immune system. So supposedly they would never get a cold. But instead what happened was it destroyed their immune system. And then they couldn't live if they didn't have this kind of life support system around them at all times. That's literally what the gray aliens are. And it's not just their immune system that requires this life support system, it's also the reproductive system. And this is in this fictional science fiction story. They have time travel as well. And what happened was they reached a dead end where they realized they can't have babies anymore. And there's not going to be any more of them. And they looked at each other and they said, oh, S-H-I-T, what am I going to do? They said, let's go back in time to our own ancestors. That would be people of this time and place, actually people of pre-World War II, kind of World War II in the 1900s. And say, let's make a treaty with President Eisenhower and let's say, hey, can we have some of these sperm and ovum from our own ancestors so we could try to fix things in the future? And he was like, of course you can, but you're going to have to give me something. And in this fictional reality, of course, the gray alien said, sure, here's some time travel, dimension bending technology. So they're sprinkling in their own technology that they would then have in the future. And that is literally where what's known as the Philadelphia experiment came from. So the Philadelphia experiment. I am talking about all sorts of cool, fun stuff here today. Just call it all fictional. It's all fictional. We're all LARPing. But Philadelphia experiment was it was the U.S. Navy, and there was a dimension hopping device that they deployed in one of these large ships, like a Navy warship, that was meant because they were experimenting with like making it radar invisible or making it physically invisible. And they didn't make it invisible. What they did was they made it interdimensional. And it made the people that were on board the Navy ship interdimensional too. And then some of them came back halfway they were half undimensionalized and then half redimensionalized. And some of them were kind of like melted into the ship, melted into the environment, like they died horribly. Definitely like giving firecrackers to children, interdimensional firecrackers to children, and then not being surprised at all when interdimensional fingers are blown off. That was pretty much what happened in that circumstance. So you can comprehend that the gray aliens in that description are completely unethical and stupid, not intelligent, like they messed themselves up, they messed their own species up, they messed up their own timeline, and then they're like, now let's mess up the past and mess up our own ancestors too. Like, totally not responsible, because you know what you should do, guys? If you end up as a part of some kind of dead and, devolved species that can't even reproduce, is totally technological reliant, and has no other hope other than going back in time to try to harvest genetic resources from your own ancestors in a Hail Mary last ditch effort to try to fix your own genome. You know what you should do? You should have a hard look in the mirror and you should say, do I actually deserve to exist as this, extremely deformed version of self? And the answer is no. The answer is no. The answer should be like, no, you effed things up so badly, so many times over the course of your ancestral history and personal history that no, you should really not exist anymore. You shouldn't try to somehow like bargain and make a new way to try to exist. You should take your consequences and be like, oh, I messed up so much that now I can't exist anymore. It's kind of like, imagine someone who has gambled so much that they're like, oh, I lost this in Vegas, and then I lost this on horse racing, and then I lost this and lost this. But you know what I need? Just one more big bet. If I can just have that one more big bet come in, then my ship's going to come in and I'm going to get it all back, baby. And then it's going to be fantastic. That's the type of extremely irresponsible and ungrounded thinking that species exhibits. And that species, of course, you guys are familiar with it because of, the whole UFO genre and so many things that are now just accepted as a matter of course within your cultural context of the conversation that's going on. But they're not the only ones that exist in that way. That really a lot of the technology dependent, and I would define as satanic species that exist in what is your linear future, derived from this moment now, from humans who are polluted, degraded, horribly deformed by their interactions with either technology or by genetic modification. And then all you have to do is extrapolate or extend that to its logical conclusion in the future, and you can see what those guys end up being like. By cutting those lives short in this moment now, you prevent those species from happening. And this is actually very positive and actually very good, that it is recognizing that by taking a decisive action now, you prevent an enormous negative outcome, including the blowback from their lack of responsibility. Because all of these, what's the definition of being like evil and wrong is not taking responsibility. Because otherwise, these negative aliens would just be like, oh, look at that, painted myself into a corner. Oh, well, I guess I'll just sit down and die. Goodbye forever, everyone. And you'd be like, dun, 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 the end. And then you'd all go on living happily because you'd made much better choices. But they don't do that. What they do is say, oh, I messed myself up so much, somebody fix me. Somebody else fix me. Somebody else do it. And does that attitude remind you of some people that you might know in this world? And I'm going to use as an example, like substance abusers. People that are like, oh, I'm going to take all sorts of drugs and do all sorts of bad things to my body, be hopelessly a drug addict living in the gutter, and then be like, somebody else fix me. You're like, no one's going to fix you because you did a lot of bad things to yourself and had many multiple abundant choice points to do something different and made the choice to be who you are in the position that you're presently in. And it is not other people's job or requirement or responsibility to fix you. But that's really different than how some people look at things in the world out here. They're like, that poor drug addict, gutter person. I think I should bring them to rehab. And I think that I should make them a better person. I think that I should get them off drugs. And I think that I should this and I should that. And it's like, if that person isn't willing to do the work and self-change, like you can't change them, you can't make them take responsibility. And you will avoid an enormous amount of personal suffering and species-wide planetary suffering and negative timelines of the future if you stop trying to take responsibility for other people's lives and require them to take responsibility for their own lives. Once again, choice points is a crucial aspect of this because people have made choices. I am not coming down hard on anyone in this class or anyone who's a good person that had to be exposed to any of these things that happened here, because I know some people regret it profoundly, and I don't want to make you feel worse about that choice, okay? And I want you to know I'm seeing if I can help people, and if there is a pathway towards biological purification or redemption or harm reduction or what that looks like. But if there is, it includes the taking of personal responsibility to say, like, I made that choice. I made that choice. But sometimes children, I bring this up, children were inoculated by their parents and caregivers to participate in educational programs, and some vulnerable populations, literally developmental disabled people in some care homes and some indigenous people, were literally held down against their will and forcibly made to experience these things. So there has to be a pathway for biological purification for people that had that, because it's not fair to be able to say, like, this happened against their will. So please keep that in mind, all right? And also, we have to look at people's personal responsibility, that if you were not forcibly held down and done against your will, that you have to say, what is my responsibility? Why did I choose to do that? What is in me that made me align with that? Do I agree with what I did? Do I wish that I hadn't done it? Would I like to change things in me? Really, really essential journey of soul searching, journey of self-assessment and looking in the mirror, journey of taking responsibility, journey of wisdom accrual. All of those things are what we're in when we are looking at awakening the light body. Awakening the light body is synonymous with accurate self-reflection, accurately assessing your motivations, choices that you've made in your life, responsibilities, and then being wise moving forward into the future. So we would then also have to make a distinction between someone who took like one of the initial things and did not go on to take other ones, as opposed to someone who got the first operating system and then the update and then the next update and the next update, because that's what happened to the gray aliens, that they just have to continually get their OS operating system, sorry, so that all wrong. They have to continually get their daily updates in their microbial operating system, because they can't function otherwise. And your immune system in its natural form is actually hugely connected to divine intelligence and hugely connected to time, and very, very essential in terms of your correct pathway moving through time. Like I've told you, when we look at the time vortex, and I'm just going to use my hands to show it like this, and you're out here and you just got born, and sometimes you die immediately, like you die one day later. You know what makes you die? It's not because you made a bad choice. You're a baby, like sitting in a bassinet. You don't have very many choices to make, but you know what happened? Your body made a choice not to fight against a particular microbe. This is what happened with infant mortality over, like human history. Some babies' bodies are like, I'm just sitting here being a baby, and then in come pathogens from the world, and the baby's body doesn't know. You gotta mobilize, fight against these guys. If you don't fight against these guys, you're gonna die. And then they don't fight against them, and the baby dies. And then you know what happens? You reach as a membrane of death. As a baby, you reach the membrane of death. You don't even have cognitive skills yet, but you see on the red clipboard, oh, I was supposed to fight against those pathogenic invaders. Fight against the pathogenic invaders next time. And then you go through the process again, and you're like, this time I'm getting born and I'm fighting the pathogenic invaders. And your immune system learns, oh, this is not a safe space. I came from a beautiful heavenly world where I can just be open, angelic, and feel great, and everybody's cool. And in this world, not everybody is cool. The first lesson you have to learn is that not everybody here is cool, and you must have effective boundaries, and you must fight against pathogens. And then when you master that, then you're going to extrapolate and bring that lesson even larger as you get into social dynamics. Not everybody in society is cool. Got to have an immune system against pathogens in society, and planetary immune system against pathogens that basically go back to some of the initial invasions and genetic modifications of this world. And that's what you're really doing right now in your planetary ascension and in your fight against all this type of Antichrist stuff. You're finally exerting your immune system. And it's only after you already got a really bad fever and pustules and you're almost dead. And now your planet is finally like, I think maybe I should eject these pathogens. I'm like, do you think? So, it's an example, satellites. That's a negative symptom. That's like having pustules. It's like, look at that poor, sick planet. It's covered in satellites. It's terrible. Hold on, let me hydrate. I hope the humor helps. Let me read this comment because I think it's going to be relevant. Good. I knew it would be. Charlie, good to see you. Thank you for being here. It says, totally agree with examples of what was commonly known by everyone in the past. AI is a censorship machine. If you use AI, you have no idea what is reality because you live in an artificial, non-true narrative bubble. Totally truthful. And so everybody watch out on that. And any modern young ramscallions that are using the AI, and you might be like 20 years or younger, like just please know, like you are not really getting the real view of reality at all, and you have nothing to compare it to. When people do research right now, they're like, oh, I'm asking the Googlepedia. And like, you can't do that. You will just get AI slop. You're not getting anything. And you're not comparing it to anything because there used to be a thing called the library that actually still exists with physical books that actually still exist that you can actually go to and compare. And sometimes you'll be really wildly surprised, like, well, that's funny because this AI told me this over here, but here it is written in a book that is totally not truthful. So the problem with AI, like the Grok Claude ChatGPT stuff, all of that stuff gives you pronouncements about truth that are not truthful. And the problem is when buyer beware, caveat emptor, if you don't research that stuff from an alternative source, you will ingest false light as if it is real light. And that is the worst thing you can possibly do. And that is the problem that's happening. Young people doing school report and school research based entirely upon not only internet-based research that used to be the Wikipedia stuff that is highly not only censored, but distorted intentionally to preserve certain viewpoints and eliminate other viewpoints. So that's intentional propaganda. But then also now young people who are using AI to do all of their research and then to write everything for them. This is anti-intelligence. This is not even pseudo-intelligence or unintelligence. This is anti-intelligence. This is how you become dumber. And when I talk about the grays, I'm not only talking about the dumbing down of the immune system, so they can't live unless they get their daily. Did you get your microbial updates today? Oh, if you don't, you're going to die. Their brains. What humans are finding out right now is that if you use ChatGPT to do all of your prose writing for you, not only does it sound like crap, and we can all tell that you're using AI to pump out crap, but also your own brain atrophies. And not very slowly either, pretty fast. Like if you do it for 3 months or 6 months or a year, like you're losing your brain muscle tone. Exactly the same way. If you didn't use your arms and legs for a year, you just stayed in bed, you would have no muscles. You would get very weak and very diminished, and you would waste. You're wasting your brain when that happens. Literally, you lose capacitation. And when you're a young person and you're supposed to be getting your education and you're supposed to be building your muscles and you don't build your muscles and you just use AI as like the crappy crutch to get through the educational system and not actually learn anything, like you never even build the muscles. So that's like not even being a healthy person who has to spend a year in bed. That's like being a bedridden, whatever you call it, like convalescent invalid who never gets out of bed and never has a life and never walks around. Your brain is an invalid that never got a chance to get up and walk around. What a distressing life. And then extrapolate that to what would a species of brain dead invalids look like? A whole species of beings or creatures who could not think for themselves, That is why we also talk about the gray aliens, of course, in this fictional LARPy context, as if they are a hive mind, because they might be individuated containers, but they are all connected to the same OS and to the same origin of the same computer program or programmer that is telling them what to do. And they don't have the capacity to innovate, and they don't have the capacity to be different. Be like, something like, imagine, because we don't imagine grays as having like self-expression. They all wear the same outfit. But imagine that one day you wake up and you're like, I'm choosing not to wear the color gray today. Like, I'm going to wear whatever, fuchsia instead. And everyone else who's gray is looking at you and be like, why are you so colorful today? Who do you think you are? Like, they literally don't have the capacity. They don't have the capacity. And if you've ever seen the movie The Giver, it's a good movie, and the book is excellent. I almost always prefer the book, and I don't really read because like my eyesight and other things are not that great, but much easier for me if I listen to audiobooks. So I listened to the audiobook The Giver, but then I did watch the movie. And the movie is really good because what it does is it uses the cinematic contrivance of going from a very monochromatic palette to then introducing the color red. Because in the book movie, in the storyline, the people are indoctrinated and they only see gray. They don't see colors, and they literally have neural blockages that they can't perceive colors. And only the giver, which is like their oral historian of their world, is able to have these breakthrough moments and be able to see a color. And they use that as a cinematic, like I said, a contrivance or a mechanism to get you, the audience, to comprehend how revolutionary it is for them and how world-shattering and amazing it is for them just to be able to see like a color like red, okay? And that movie is also all about totalitarian consciousness reduction and all the things that I'm against. So very, very few worthy movies that come out of Hollywood because it's such slop and it's such claptrap and it's such mostly the distraction stuff. But that's one of the few movies that I think is like worthy of putting your tendril of attention on it. So yeah, the grays have an innate incapacitation to go outside of their path, to go off their track, to decide suddenly to be not gray but colorful. Like, they can't do that. They don't have that tendency anymore. The ability to innovate, the ability to do something new and surprising. It's been literally bred out of them. And that is a dead end. And they're not the only dead end. There's lots of other dead end species that come from this moment now that basically have to do with reliance upon AI for thought structures and guidance, reliance upon technology for reproduction, meaning like making new babies, and even creating new body parts like cloning, or cloning a new heart, like if your heart wears out or any of those things, and also basically a total embracing of false light. And they're all dead ends. And the problem is some of them become technologically adept to the point that they can actually have an impact on us in this time place. And then it is imperilment to those of us who don't want to go on an effing dead end. Because you know what I would be like? Otherwise, I'd be like this. I want to get to your other part 2 of your question. But usually I'm like this. I do me, you do you, like with total attitude. Like, you want to take crazy substances and become a gray alien, do it. Go enjoy your dead end timeline. That's usually what I would be like. But if you're going to F up my life while you're busy effing up your own life, then I'm not okay with that. Or F up my planet, or F up my galaxy. And that is exactly what these negative future species are doing. So I know this has been like a long reportage, but part of what I talk about in my wonderful comic book with stick figures is that a lot of those potential futures are being cut short by things that I am directly doing, because that those are such negative future potentials and they are bleeding through. They impact me and other people that are here now, so that you can't just live your life and be like, go be crazy and do your crazy technological crapola to yourself. It's affecting me. So think about the drug addict in the gutter, because we do use this as a direct analogy now. You would say, well, it's your job, your life, you want to take heroin or whatever crazy white powdery substances, go do it. But don't involve me, right? But it does involve you. Because if someone is stealing to support their habit, it involves you indirectly. It affects the social fabric. If they're leaving dangerous needles around and someone else can step on it, it affects you. If they're pooping in the street, it affects you. Like, people self-destructing in your immediate environment really affects you. I promise I'm gonna get to your other part of your question, but I have to just stay on my rant here. I lived in San Diego for 1 year, and I've read on paper that it's a nice city to live in. And there were a lot of circumstances in my life as to why I was there. But all I can say is there are so many drug addicts there. And there were so many drug addicts in my neighborhood. And when I moved into the neighborhood, it was kind of a beach community. And I moved in February. So there weren't that many drug addicts there because it wasn't that nice and sunny. But then when it got to be like beach weather, like whatever, in June, it's just full of drug addicts, like shambling zombies that were there to self-destruct. And there was not a good way to have a good life. Not even in terms of like just walking out of my apartment building and walking around a neighborhood that literally had pee and poop everywhere on the streets that smelled gross, people that were passed out everywhere, people that were panhandling or stealing or dangerously, confronting you in some way. And also that's the physical five senses stuff, esoteric and emotional energy that was so draining and so destabilizing and so bad to be around. And my little dog, she was destabilized the whole time that we were there. She was always barking at meth heads because she can tell that someone is wrong and bad. She's like, woof, woof, get away from us. Woof, woof, get away from us. Like, no one was cool in that whole neighborhood except for the people that lived in my apartment building were all good people, but everyone around there, they were all drug addicts. It was terrible environment. So at that point, we need to hug TV. At that point, it's not acceptable to simply be like, oh, I do me, you do you, go self-destruct on drugs, because other people self-destructing around you destroys your quality of existence and can make it very, very hard for you to achieve levels of ascended mastery and enlightenment. So it is a direct assault on you, okay? We'll see if we need to do bribes. We might need to do bribes. But let me now finally get to this other part too, because Charlie B also goes on to say, agree on the origin of grays. If you want to continuously biohack, that's the word, biohack yourself, which many do, and you embrace a double down attitude to fix the issue you create with implications you later discover, then you are the origin for the grays. I completely agree with you, and that's such a great phrase, Charlie. Thank you for giving that articulation to me. People here right now are very obsessed with biohacking. I don't think it's positive. I think it is largely ways for people to try to evade and avoid responsibility instead of actually being in real partnership with their physical body and the sun and the stars and nature. That the biohacking world is very artificial. People aren't saying, the biohackers should be coming forward and being like, get rid of these effing chemtrails, get rid of that artificial sun, because you know what? All of those things are causing premature aging and blah, blah, blah in my body. And I'm trying to live for, extended amounts of time. None of these people are doing that. Like, I have zero respect for these people. They're like, no, I'm going to try to bottle a pill. Wait, I don't know what I can pick up over here to be like, represent, oh, wait, here. This magical pill that will do something for me and contravene the effects of, the particulates in the air or the lack of real sunlight. Like, no, these people are looking for band-aids and things that you can sell as opposed to actually purifying the environment, which is what you need to actually do to achieve longevity and eternal life. So what you need to do is not just hack, you need to actually nourish. And that means you have to have a worldwide systemic change. No more chemtrails, no more bad sun simulator in the sky, no more harmful artificial light sources, only natural light, and you got to have purified structured water, and you got to have things like candles and incandescent light bulbs, and to completely change your electronics. So it can be done, but there has to be a movement for it. I really want to get one of these things. It's this, it's just expensive. All these electronic things are so expensive. It's like a tablet, like an iPad, but it's made without the bad light that shines in your face. It's just like an amber type of like yellowish light. And, you know, it's, of course, it's not like a color screen. It's just a black and white screen. So it's not the type of thing that I could use for Photoshop and making my artwork and, you know, stuff that I have to do that requires color. But like if all that you're doing is reading text or, you know, reading emails or something, I think it's so much better for your eyes and so much improved. It's something like daylight computers, the name of what it is. You know, all these things, they're always expensive. So I wish I had more money to be able to spend on it. But I think we need to do more stuff like that and have it not just be the niche specialty equipment, but have that be the norm. And the reason it's not the norm is because the evil ones have been engineering this world to have as the final denouement, the inevitable creation of the grays, because the grays backbended in time. And so a lot of these evil people at the top of the heap think, oh, it's inevitable. The grays have to happen, and we're going to help make them happen because they happened, and they made the Philadelphia experiment. None of these people think like, you can actually change. You can actually change. You can actually change time, and you're supposed to. Time is actually not deterministic, and you're not required to participate in these negative time loops. You can change these time loops. But these guys got firecrackers in terms of time toaster technology, not a genuine metacognitive comprehension of what time is. And they never asked me. With attitude, I would have told them. And then I would say, like, well, you get what you deserve. But if you F up time for the rest of us, then I don't want to take the consequences of your gross, disgusting actions, you know, of harming time, just disturbing time. We're not going to have a, we're not going to have a break right now. We'll see, because she might be able to wait a little bit longer. Okay, so Michelangelo, good to see you. He says, okay, 2 members of the USS Eldridge, Al Bialik and Duncan Cameron, were said to have jumped off the ship when it teleported from 1943 to 1983. Then the info started to leak all about the varied experiments. Thank you very much for fleshing out my reportage with those names, and you can check that out. And then also there is a fictional movie that kind of explores some of these concepts that's called The Final Countdown. That is a movie from the 80s because what Michelangelo talks about is exactly correct, that they were trying to do an invisibility experiment on the Eldridge, and instead it slipped through time. It went interdimensional, and then it slipped back. And really interesting to hear that these crew members supposedly were able to jump off and so non-participate in that. So definitely interesting story to be able to investigate there. And let me just go a little bit further back. Okay. Well, these are 2 good questions. I have still more stuff in my curriculum, but let me do these 2 questions while I'm in a good stopping point here. Kim says, is there a place for sexuality in the higher faculties? It has always struck me that gurus and religious leaders often turn out to have extreme sexual practices. Okay, so let's talk about a lot of the gurus and unhealthy, unhealed people who are false self-proclaimed Christs or self-proclaimed ascended masters. They are not really doing the right thing with their sexual energy at all. So when you become a real ascended master, you do not require energy from anyone else in order to achieve all of your miracles and magical things that you do. It's not even literally necessary for you to have the optical sun outside of yourself. You have the inner sun that is inside of yourself at all times. It's just very, very incredibly rare. And let's go through the stages of what happens when you are an infant into consciousness adulthood. But let's just say that when you become an adult, you're an ascended master, you're not here in the world anymore. So I'll talk about myself a little bit. I am an ascended master because I ascended in Atlantis, concurrent ancient time. But the rules of ascension and the way that we did it was different then. And I came into this body here voluntarily or intentionally to be able to demonstrate what ascension looks like in this container with this level of challenges. And that's also part of why I had to innovate Flying Rainbow Lasagna. But the key point is, why would I not call myself right now an ascended master, but I'm an ascending master? And the answer is because ascended masters do not have a physical formfulness. They have graduated from physical reality. And I do have a physical formfulness. I'm right here. And for anybody who's ever wondered, like, is Aurora a real person? People have come to my retreats and they know I'm a real person. And we have had meals together. You know that I'm for real. And that's important. So if you ever questioned or wondered in this world, you must sometimes be skeptical. Be like, is Aurora a bunch of pixels on a screen? Is she a real person? Real person. And I eat real food and have real feelings and a real dog, which is really cute. And yeah, being an ascended master means that you have pretty much transcended the need for being a physical person. And that includes transcending a need for physical input like food, water, transcending some of the physical processes that are about like elimination and effluvia, and also definitely transcending the traditional sense of sexual expression. So you can't be an ascended master and say, hi, I'm here, I'm an ascended master. Like, let's go have a cup of coffee together. If that ever happened, you'd be like, ascended masters don't drink a cup of coffee. Like, you can't do that. And this is also like, I am here to tell you about stuff. I have to have a mouth to be able to flap my moving mouth parts and tell you about stuff. Otherwise, I would just be an impulse. And I would be like, being an impulse is so much easier than buying groceries and taking care of my body and doing all these things. You have to be paying for my rent and all these things that are so challenging. But I am doing them in order to show you how do you ascend with a body like this in a circumstance like this. And it would be so easy if I was a disembodied person. I would just be like, wave my magic fingers at you, just ascend. And I wanted to say wave my diamonds because, brief aside, way back when I worked as a custom framer, I had this one like semi-famous client. I won't mention them. They were like a wife of a famous person, and she came in to get a bunch of things framed, and everyone was fawning over her. And she needed to be done by like Thursday or whatever. And I was like, thank you very much for the work. And we'd love to do this for you, but I cannot have this done by Thursday. And I was, the person in charge of the department. And she had this giant diamond ring. Imagine some like giant diamond ring here. And she just kind of like waved her hand at me with this giant diamond ring. She's like, just make it happen. Just make it happen. She just waved her diamonds at me. And I'm like, I didn't say it to her, but I'm thinking like, lady, like, I don't care how much you wave your diamonds at me. Like, I can't just get this done by Thursday. All right. So, this blithe sense of just like waving your diamonds, just make it happen. I didn't do that. Be very reductionist and simplistic to try to do that when the truth is there are a lot more moving parts to make something really happen. And so I am here in the physicality to be able to show you with my body how you actually make this stuff happen and not just be blithely pronouncing. All right. But no, when you become an ascended master, your energy of the sacrum, which is the sacred sexual energy that comes from the orange area of the pelvis, and it comes up your body and it comes out the top of your head. Like that's what orgasm is. Sorry if this is like, whatever, family viewing, but you might have to now talk about orgasms to your kids. But that's essentially what that is. When you become an ascended master, you not repurpose that, you truthfully purpose that energy, because the energy of orgasm is actually repurposed divine ascension energy. And when you use it correctly, you are actually using it for your consciousness propulsion and to create larger event structures in reality. So having orgasms is kind of like beginner level stuff. But as I'm saying this, I'm also realizing like people are going to way misinterpret this. I'm getting into a quagmire. I don't know if I should go further. But when you ascend, or when you are in the process of ascension, you direct that energy differently. You're not directing it towards making more physical people, procreation, making babies. You're not directing it towards partners that are physical embodied partners. You are directing it towards the fabric of reality. And it's a completely different expression. And it is, again, partnerless. So I am not here to forcibly advocate for any of you guys to be celibate when you are still in your levels of self-construction and sexual self-exploration that are appropriate to your levels of development. That was the quagmire I didn't want you to get into. Don't try to go into some kind of fasting or sexual fasting or abstinence before you're ready for it. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to relinquish it when you're no longer hungry for that and to use your energy differently. All right. So same thing, like some people are like, oh, like I want to ascend, but I heard you have to be a strict vegetarian in order to ascend. So I can't eat that hamburger. And if I eat meat, then I'm just going to be like smacked down hard, like stuck on earth. And then I'll be down here on earth and be like, oh, like, why am I suffering so much? And everyone who's laughing in the ascended world is going to be because you ate that hamburger and you're bad. No, no. But I did know someone who's a fruitarian who told me he confessed that his greatest fear and his nightmares that he'd wake up with is that he was going to ascend and he was eating a hamburger, and because he had meat in his mouth, that they were like, wah wah, no ascension for you, goodbye, next. And that he was like, well, I wanted to ascend. But I'm here to tell you, I eat hamburgers and chicken. I'm going to ascend. So please know that sometimes you need to eat protein for your body, for your muscles, and that God is not going to punish you. You can still ascend. And also, please know that when you're in the levels of healthy self-exploration and respectful use of your sexuality, you can also have sex, have sexual partners, have children, and ascend. Please think know that you do not have to think. Please know that you do not have to think that those things put you out of the category of ascension. And I know that there's all sorts of, do you know the word mishigas? That is a Jewish word meaning craziness, but basically it is emotional baggage and projection upon both food and sex. And that everybody thinks, well, to be a holy person, you can't eat certain things and you can't have sex. And so people are in all these monasteries and all these secluded places being like, I'm so hungry, I'm so horny. Again, apologies if you're watching with your family. They want it, but they just are abstaining from it. None of that is pro-ascension. So you should explore these things and feed your appetites in a healthy way. I will tell you, I am 100% against anything that is non-consensual in terms of sexuality partnership, and I'm 100% against anything that is pornography. I don't consider anything healthy in terms of pornography and sexually explicit materials. But other than that, you should find consensual, positive partners for your self-expression, or do things in your life that are good for you, and then relinquish that and move into a higher level of being when you are ready. And same thing with your diet. You should eat for your body and what you need in terms of your development and your levels of development now. And when you're ready to relinquish, then you relinquish. Caterpillars turn into butterflies. Caterpillars eat protein. Butterflies do not eat protein. Caterpillars eat all of the protein that the butterfly is going to eat during the time that the caterpillars are caterpillars. If caterpillars are like, I'm a caterpillar, I'm so hungry for protein, but I'm not going to eat protein because it's going to help me to be a butterfly. Do you know what you're doing? Actually starving yourself and not getting the nutrients you need for when you are a butterfly, because butterflies just fly around drinking flower nectar, and there's zero amount of protein in flower nectar, and they're not, their organs are not developed to be able to digest protein. It means they aren't going to have the gas in the car that they need to go where they need to go. So please honor and follow your appetites. And this is what I tell you to eat by glow. You go to the store and the food that you're supposed to eat is going to glow. And this is part of activating your light body and living according to your higher senses. And it's going to tell you, eat me. And even when you see a pile of oranges, they're not all the same. One of them is going to glow. And you're going to get very, very good at figuring out which is the specific orange that you need to eat. And then even once you take it home, during the day when you're hungry, you're like, what should I eat? Peanut butter, chicken, orange. At a certain point, the orange is going to glow at you and going to say, eat me. And you're like, now is the moment to eat that beautiful orange. You got to eat the right thing at the right time. Embedded in time in a perfect partnership. This is what ascended mastery truly is. Not about self-denial, asceticism, and abstention. It is about doing the right thing in the right time to bring you down the right road in time. And when I say that, then you can comprehend how anti-ascended mastery is becoming some of these dead-end space races that can only keep themselves alive and viable by using huge levels of technological interference. So a lot of this stuff with weird gurus and religious leaders, like they are very, very unhealed, very, very unformed inside, and they're some of the worst distractions for your tendril of attention. They're like, look at me, pay attention to me over here, pay attention to me over here. And meanwhile, you should be having a conversation with a plant. You would learn more from a tree and really genuinely reaching out, or an ant, or like a little worm on the ground, than talking to this self-proclaimed supposed spiritual teacher and spiritual guru. There's another good question here, and I'm going to get to that. But first, I keep on telling you, I want to talk about the stages of root development, and I don't want to forget about this. Okay, so First of all, what are some other psychic gifts other than clairvoyance and clairaudience? And what are the stages of your development in terms of light body from infancy through adulthood? So I'm working backwards. I already told you that adulthood is ascended mastery, where not only have you transcended the physical flesh, but also you are directly connected to time and you're making time structures directly. And it's kind of like being a sun in the sky. Like the sun is emanating thought waves in giant shells of light that proliferate and percolate through the infrastructure and through the architecture. And they're made of interlocking causality events that are conscious, but then the sun is also learning from them. And when you're an ascended master, you're doing something very similar. You're an adult in the world, connected to the world of pure time and pure light, connected to the sea of consciousness, creating event structures and taking full responsibility for them. This is directly analogous to like when you're in the human social dynamic and you're an adult. When you're an adult here, what that means is you're in charge of yourself, you earn your own money, you take care of your own bills, take responsibility for the things that you do in your life. And these secular lessons translate directly to the esoteric development of becoming an ascended master. But let's rewind now from what it is to be an adult to what it is to be an infant. When you're an infant, you don't comprehend what your senses are. You're like, I don't even know like how to interpret what I see around me. And it takes at least like a year for little babies to comprehend and organize their visual structure, their visual field, so that they can tell like, where is stuff in space? Who am I? What's the stuff that is me when I look at stuff? How do I make sense of what my eyes are seeing? How far away are things in space? And when you see little babies playing, like sometimes people just don't even give children enough credit. Like they're doing very, very complex self-calibrations. Like you think that they're playing and then like, oh, like look at them, they're so stupid, they're playing. Like no, they're so intelligent, they're playing and they're learning like, how far away is this object from me? How far away is my hand from this object? How far away is this object from my mouth? Can I eat it? Like they do all of those things. And this is all pre-verbal, very, very important levels of inner self-organization. And this also has to do with comprehending human faces. Like a face is different than this. A face is different than this, because we have to know about faces so that you can understand people's expressions, and then also starting to comprehend like this expression is different from this expression. Like, you know, all of those things. Babies have to calibrate to all of those things, right? And babies also aren't yet mobile. Little baby infants, like they just kind of sit there and they don't go anywhere. And then at a certain point, like they have the capacity to roll over and crawl. Then they start to get going somewhere and they're more powerful than a little passive baby that just sits there. And then at a certain point, they get more muscle power and better control of their body, and they can stand up and walk around, and that's a toddler. And toddlers are tiny destructo babies. They are, because they have the capacity to move themselves around and do stuff. They still can't really control themselves effectively, all right? So with your light body, you're doing the same thing. Right now, you can think of yourself as an infant of consciousness, where with your light body, like you might have impressions and things that come to you that you don't even know how to interpret what you're receiving. Some of it might be imagery, some of it might be tones. That's easy. Those are things that you have analogs for. But some of it might be stuff that you don't have an analog for, like math calculations and patterning. That's a lot of what my gift is. Or an anticipatory precog of time, precognizance, to anticipate what's going to happen in time. That is its own sense that comes from your higher senses, but is not analogous to anything. I do know people who are, I don't know what you would call it, olfactory and taste, clair smelling, clair tasting. One example would be someone that I knew who worked in a restaurant, and she was in the kitchen. She was a waitress, and she was like, I smell something rotten. And it was like, just cleaned. We know it's not here. And she's like, no, I really smell something rotten. And for many days, she kept on telling them, I know I smell something rotten. And then finally they found it, and they were like, oh, we found this thing. But it was, she was smelling the future. It was not there, and it was not rotten, but it was going to be rotten. And then eventually they found it because it turned rotten. She was smelling the future. I'm not telling the story as well as I could, but please know that that type of thing happens, where you might smell through time. And that might seem strange, but you can do that. It's like when I tell you shop by glow. These are non-rational experiences and non-rational navigational capabilities. Tactile. We don't talk enough about the tactile sense of your light body, but that's a huge part of what is my gift, and it's part of my dance. Because when I dance, I don't think like, move my elbow, now move my knee. Like, I do not think like that at all. And it's actually been a little bit tough when I've been, now I'm a dance facilitator. Like, I teach other people about dance. And I had to learn, like, how do I even talk about this with people? Because I don't think about it with words. And I don't think like, oh, like now, like move my butt, now move my shoulder. Like, that is not what I do. I go into a feeling state. And then my dance is an emanation of that feeling state. And it is a result of complex calculation, which I told you, calculation, math, and patterning is also part of my gift. So please know that as your light body awakens, your infant right now, you might not have words to rationally describe your experience, but that the senses of the light body can be beyond rational description. And you don't just have five senses. In the physical world, you have five senses: your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, your touch, right? But in the world of your light body, you actually have like a bubble, a sphere all around you, 360 degrees or 42,000 degrees of senses all around you. And your senses are also multidimensional. You sense through time. And so sometimes you might feel things like, I feel coldness, or I feel hotness, or I feel pressure, or I feel energy, or I feel zapping. So here's a good example, because I've been friends with tons of psychic people over my life. You can comprehend, right? Because I'm kind of a psychic person myself. I hang out with other psychics. One of my friends, and she's passed on, but I remember her, as a very good friend. We used to sometimes go to New York City together. This is like in the early 2000s, in order to look at art stuff and be a part of art exhibits and things there in Lower Manhattan. So I was walking through New York City with her at that one time, and we were exploring the place, and we're kind of like walking along, and all of a sudden she stops, and she's like, stop, we can't go any further. And I'm like, what? And we're just like standing on a sidewalk in Greenwich Village. And she's like, no, there's a ley line right here. We can't go any further. We got to turn left. We got to go over here. And like this girl, like she could not read a map. She did not know like how to pay her car insurance. Like she did not have those type of life skills. She was totally navigating all the time by like the kinesthetic senses of her body. She also was like hearing impaired. She couldn't really hear people in the world. She didn't navigate by the traditional rationalism of skills that we have. She felt everything. And so I'd be like, okay, like let's go in this direction. But she was very, very kinesthetic, tactile, and she was feeling like a current of energy, if you could imagine like a waterfall. And you're not just going to walk directly into a waterfall. She's like, oh no, we can't go here. We have to go around. And please know that that's also a very, very valid way of being. And it might be anti-industrial, it might not be rational. People don't do this in an urban environment, but this is a totally normal way for us to do or navigate if we were to walk around in a place like a natural environment, like a forest, or whatever, a field, something like that. You would follow the currents. And in most cities, they have simply made things as grid-like boxes, roads and different things like that, totally without respecting the natural currents and the natural directions that energy would flow. So that's it. When you are starting to calibrate your light body, you might sometimes feel a current of energy, but you might not have any words to describe it or any social support structure. Because if you're with your friend like me, she might roll your eyes and be like, sure, let's go this way instead. And it's totally valid. And if you're a parent and you're parenting a little tiny human being, they might have already some aspect of their psychic powers and light body awakened. And you might be like, come on, kid, like we have to go across the street. And your little kid might be like, no, like I don't want to go in that direction. And you might be like, I'm mad at you. Get moving now, kid. You're going to get spanked. And we have to be much more accommodative and respectful of children's own natural abilities, because some kids are already partially awakened and they get closed down. I already told you, religious judgment closes people down a lot. Same thing, because that's saying like, you're the devil. You're the devil's spawn if you feel these things, if you know these things, if you sense these things, and if you talk about these things. Also can just be inconvenient. And if you're inconveniencing mom and dad because you're busy feeling energy currents, you're like, no, mom, we can't go down that street. There's an energy current there. Mom's like, get down. You're like, I don't have time for this crap. We got to get to school or whatever. Parents, please try to do better than the previous generation. Because it's just like when people used to write with their left hand and everyone told them, like, no, it's the devil's hand, write with your right hand. Like people have been forced to close down their own capabilities to survive and to find social acceptance. We need to give social acceptance and accommodation to people as they are psychics, as they are growing up. And that's not just kinesthetic stuff and feeling stuff as children are navigating their lives. It also is impressions about adults. Oftentimes children are like this. They're like, you're like, go and hug Uncle so-and-so. And children are like, oh, I don't like Uncle so-and-so. And children, parents are like this, go hug Uncle so-and-so. And the kids are like, whoa. There's a reason why kids are cringing from Uncle so-and-so. They can feel him. They don't like him. We gotta respect kids because the feelings are coming from here, the orange area, and they are coming from here. They're focused here. They're valid. Kids are often feeling and sensing very valid things about the adults around them and their distastefulness and social propriety by other adults that makes them have to act polite. And we must eradicate that from our world because you have to be able to trust and act on your emotional truth and on your insight truth. And this is part of guiding yourself through time. So when you're a baby, you're passive, and then you start to learn how to start to do stuff. So when you are an infant of consciousness, you're passive in terms of time. You're not yet creating reality structures. You're kind of just like, I'm not, this is me being a baby. Like, I don't know how to get stuff done. Like, I just exist. I just do stuff. And also, mom sticks food in here. I don't have to effort at all. Like, and then someone else changes my diaper for me. Like, that's what it is to be a passive infant. But when you become a toddler, then it means that you get to start making stuff happen and getting stuff done. And my years of being a professional babysitter, and I worked with toddlers and took care of them sometimes, what I learned is that toddlers want to do it on your own, on my own. I would ask the little kids that I was looking after, I'd be like, do you want me to do this for you, or do you want to do it on your own? And they'd say, on my own, and then you have to let them try it because it is essential for their inner wiring and for them to grow and for them to develop. So sometimes it's so much easier to be like, okay, we're getting ready, we're gonna go, whatever, run around outside. So we have to put our shoes on. Do you want me to tie your shoes for you, or do you want to do it on your own? And they're always like this, they're always like, on my own. And then you have to wait like 15 minutes. Well, they're painfully trying to get their shoes on, and they put them on the wrong feet, and you have to help them the right way, and then they can't get it together. But then when they actually tie the bow and get their feet in their shoes, then they stand up and they're like this, I did it! I did it myself! And then you have to clap and be like, good job, you did it yourself. So this is like when you are in the level of just exploring your Merkaba, and just exploring, beginning to create something in reality. You don't create your whole entire reality, but maybe you wish for something and you envision it and you hope for it. And then you somehow magically manifest it into the world. And then you stand there with the thing, whatever you manifested, could be a chocolate bar, could be a lasagna, and you're like, I thought of this, I imagined this, and here it is right here. And then you're like, I did it myself. And of course, you didn't create a whole planet. You didn't create life. You didn't create, a whole reality structure, but you made a thing. And that tells you that you can do more. And the reason why we support toddlers when they are coming through that level of development, instead of just being like, let me just put on your shoes for you. Okay, get moving, kid. We don't have time for this. They have to learn that they can do it themselves. Otherwise, they're infantilized and they feel deeply, foundationally embrace the truth that they're like, I can't do anything. Someone else has to do it for me. So it is essential for good parenting or good like babysitting, to be able to, for good caretaking, to be able to give them the opportunity to learn and grow. This is literally the stage that you guys are just starting to go through with your personal and planetary ascension. And all of this Antichrist stuff is all about hijacking and diminishing your ability to create reality. You want to know what that stuff is really about, all of the mind control, both like MK Ultra programs and things that are overtly like creating hallucinations, illusions, and distortions of the mind, but also more acceptable forms of mind control in your world, just literally government. Government, like in the word, governs your mind. Like it's making you think a certain way. It is socially acceptable forms of mind control. But these things should not be present during your ascension, because ascension is really that amazing moment when you plant a world seed. Like you've prepared the garden, the ground is ready to receive your set of potentials, and then you plant the seed. And then it goes ka-chunka, chunka, 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 and all these things start to grow as a result, because you made a seed of potential, put it into the vibrating field of divinity, and then God created this amazing experience that you come around into your life, and you're like, oh, I made this. I did it myself, and then I take responsibility for it. And when the government is controlling your mind, then they are limiting or influencing your seed. And then you're like, whatever, you thought you were going to be planting tomatoes, you plant the seed, but it turns out it's government influenced. And then you end up growing a completely different plant instead, or maybe it doesn't grow at all because something else hijacked or influenced your true mind. And if you want to know what really caused or is in imminent peril of causing the destruction or catastrophe in ancient concurrent Atlantis, it is the takeover of mind. That what they did then there, or will do then there, is erect a series of towers or artificial Merkabahs that control people's minds, so that when you're emanating and when you're creating, you're not creating from your natural mind state, you're creating from a government approved mind state, and create a bunch of crazy crap. And what I wrote about in my notes from 10 years ago is that for a long time, humanity and this planet has been distanced or quarantined or limited in your full ability to express yourself because you've been creating a bunch of crazy crap. You haven't been in control of your mind. And that destabilizes your planet because you're supposed to be creating stabilizing structures for your planet, not destabilizing things. And also because you don't want those destabilizing structures to proliferate outward into the rest of the world. So a destabilizing mind structure would be something like the expectation of catastrophe or nuclear war. And there's tons of movies that are about, nuclear war. And then there's also the book of Revelation at the end of the Bible, which I think is one of the most destructive things that has been sprinkled into your society, because it is a very powerful foundational document that, it's satanic literature. The Bible is satanic literature, and it starts out in the beginning, and then it brings you through this whole human history, and then it gives you the expectation of the end. And it tells you there's going to be an end, and it's going to be like this, and it ain't pretty. And that, to me, I think is very not only defeatist and inaccurate, but none of the things that happen in the end are positive. It is more false light information that's a distraction that brings people towards death. Because here's the bait and switch. They tell you, in order to have a jubilee, a restoration, and reconstruction, you must have a destruction. You must have an end to everything in order to get saved, in order for your world to be saved, in order to be reunited with your dead loved ones and dead pets, in order to have a paradise on earth. Everything has to die and be incinerated. And that is not a correct mind structure, not a correct thought structure, heavily influenced, heavily satanically indoctrinated. And if you think that, then you're creating death with your mind. If you believe that deeply, you're investing all of your passions in that manifestation of that world. And what if you emanate that outward to the rest of the world? What if you think, oh yeah, we got to have the whole entire fabric of space-time destroyed, and then we can have something better come in its place? That is terrible. And I do not consent. And it's erroneous. Because if you get rid of the fabric of space, I'm like, no, you're not getting another one. And it's exactly like a little kid that like colors on a piece of paper It doesn't look very good. And like, I don't like this one. Can I have another one? It's like, no, no, you just ruined the fabric of space-time. No, you cannot have another one. Like, that's not right. And everything that I talk to you about here is about create, and in my Tuesday dance class too, creating something as a work in progress and then receiving your creation and then fine-tuning it. Because I'm an artist. You guys can see I'm working on things in the background here. I make visual stuff. I make music with my, you could hear, and I fine tune it. Like music, I think is a perfect example because I don't make that many changes. Like once I come up with a painting and I have the design and the structure, like I pretty much know like it's going to be like this, it's going to be like this, and I don't make that many changes. But I might make something like less orange or less red, like not quite so bright. But in my music, I change songs a lot. Like first I do something, I'm like creatively crazy. I'm like, throw the kitchen sink, do anything you want, any instrument, anything at all, totally not self-judgmental, right? And then I sit back and I put on my headphones and I actually listen. I'm like, this song sounds like crap. Like this part is not right at all. And I erase it, I get rid of it. And sometimes I'm like, this part is good, but just want to have it in the beginning of the song. I don't want it through the whole song. So I erase the after part. And then some parts I'm like, oh, this part is way too loud. I need to make this part less loud. And then I'm like, okay, this song is okay, but it needs something more. So with my songs, it's very reflective or back and forth. It's not just a straightforward process. I'm adding to it. I'm taking away from it. I kind of don't know what I'm doing, but I kind of know what I'm doing. And then I can tell like when it feels right, I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it. This is exactly what I want this to sound like. And then I kind of finalize the song. That's what we're doing with reality. That's actually what we're supposed to do. So you don't have to start off with everything perfect. You can be a work in progress, but you have to edit things. You have to cut out the parts that don't work. You have to be responsive to your creation and just genuinely sense like if you're listening to a particular instrument, you're like, that sounds so bad. Like, because sometimes it's like it's very like whatever, like a high-pitched sound or something like that. I'm like, like that sounds terrible. It's hurting my ears. I'm not going to do that to the audience. Like, that sounds terrible. Cut that part out. We have to do that with reality as well. So this is now, oh, and you know what? Hold on. We're going to get onto toddlership. Let me take care of someone over here. Hold on a moment. Okay, back to toddlerhood. A toddlerhood is also exciting because toddlers make a mess, which is often why I was hired as a babysitter because the parents are all bedraggled. They're like, you take her for a little while. We can't deal with this. Very, very understandable and very lovable. All right. I totally got where parents were coming from. Because you know what, little toddlers are like, I do it myself. And then they spill the juice all over the counter. And they're like, I do it myself. And their shoes are all muddy and they make a terrible mess inside. Yeah, so a lot of what I did was cleaning up after toddlers. And you guys, anybody who's a parent in this class also can, I'm sure, relate. You're like, yep, you spend a lot of time. And also, my dog is very funny because when we walk around town, she knows to follow toddlers, like, that might be in little strollers or whatever, because those toddlers, they throw like Cheerios, goldfish crackers, they throw all sorts of things on the ground. And she is like, oh, I'm going to clean up. This is going to be great. So yeah, toddlers make a mess. Okay, now let's talk about being a toddler in time, a time toddler. You're no longer a passive infant, just allowing time structures to exist. You are actively creating structures in time, but sometimes doing just like a really bad job of it. And that is okay because you are a toddler. And the way that you learn is by doing. And please know that you're in a safe and protected environment where you have loving adults that are parenting you. Like the sun in the sky is a loving parent that is making sure like, oh, like, look at that toddler. Like, people really know what they're doing. I want to make sure they don't go over a cliff. They don't crash their bike into a lamp pole, and they don't run with scissors. But I also want to make sure that they have enough freedom to be able to build their posture, build their muscles, develop balancing skills, and learn and grow and figure out what they can do in the world. So this is literally the stage that most of you are coming into. You're starting to explore your light body, calibrate your senses, and then figure out how to create reality structures. But you have to make sure that they're not hijacked. by your government or by other forms of Antichrist projections into your mind that would harm you. And if you have Antichrist projections in your mind, the loving parents around you are going to be like, oh, I'm not going to let you run with scissors. Like, no, you cannot manifest that. No. And sometimes that's what we do. We say that to toddlers. Like, no, you cannot do that. And then sometimes toddlers are like, well, I want to do it, right? And think about this. Do you know that this is running with scissors? And it is something that I have learned I have to say to humanity, like, no, no, you're not allowed to do that. And humanity is like, well, but I want to do it. And I'm like, oh, and of course not you guys, but some of the technologists in our world think so. And it's also the reason why we don't let toddlers run with scissors is because they could hurt themselves or they could hurt others. And it is not acceptable to do certain things to DNA because DNA is connected across time, all of us. And we can't be like, oh, those time toddlers over there are really screwing things up. And it's hurting me as an adult. Can't have that. Yeah, and it can affect the whole household. As another fun Aurora story, I was working as a live-in nanny at this one house, and this little kid who was 6, which is not a toddler, but still very young, decided like he didn't like what was going on in the household, and he had a bunch of other behavioral issues, and he decided he was just gonna flush a pair of scissors down the toilet. And it was actually an old house and only had one bathroom. And then none of us could use the toilet because he was busy acting out and flushed the scissors down the toilet. And so we cannot allow that to happen in our world. Like you can't allow a whiny or bratty or selective segment of toddlerish population to be like, wow, I want to flush the toilet down, flush the scissors down the toilet and ruin the plumbing for the whole house, and then no one can do anything anywhere. We don't want that. That is the equivalent of allowing this stuff to happen. And that's why we can't just be like, I do me, you do you. So again, we go from levels of like, yes, it's true to be cosmically respectful of others and their free will and to say, okay, good, like she inject drugs and go live in the gutter. But it's like, oh no, actually that is being affecting other people and you can't just do that. And then definitely not when you get to levels of anything that is about DNA, anything that's about light, anything that's about consciousness, and anything that's about time travel. Because once you start to go into all of those levels, like you're not just in your own private kiddie pool. And that is what I say in my notes. And that truism really does echo in clarity. You are not just swimming around in your own mental pool. You are connected to an ocean of consciousness. And the thoughts that you think have an impact on other people. There is such a thing as stratification, which is in a pristine environment that is not synthetic telepathy. So I didn't get enough into regular telepathy versus synthetic telepathy. But synthetic telepathy artificially connects people who had minds that would otherwise never be connected. In my experience here over the past 5 years, I've been mentally connected to a series of minds that I would never have been connected to naturally. And they are the grossest doo-doo minds on your planet. The worst of the worst. Now, in this class, I call you guys the best of the best, and I'm very, very pleased to be mentally connected to you. And you are all good people. And I'm very, very happy to share my mind and tell you about things and have you attenuate to me. But there are very many very, very satanic and antichrist people that are in the world that are using synthetic telepathy to try to tune in on me, and not only just to surveil me, but also to talk to me and to influence my mind and to influence my creative processing, to influence what I am sending out there with my consciousness. And they are the darkest, grossest, most evil magicians on your planet, and very, very horrible and very doo-doo. And the problem is that they have technologically created these bridges between different minds that would otherwise never be together, and they have contravened the stratification. So in the natural world without technology, minds would become stratified. If you're a gross doo-doo person, you're staying down here, and that means people that are about violation and sexual degeneracy and crepitude, better words for it, like evil and wrongness and psychopathology and Stephen King horror movies. All of that is down at that lower level. And then there's other levels that are like people that are thinking about love and reciprocity and respect and generosity. And then above that, people that are thinking about like the quantum fabric of the universe and mathematics and things that are positive abstractions. Like I'm at that level, and I've been artificially bridged, and I'm connecting to like the Stephen King horror show of like degenerates down here. I would never talk to these people. Never. It has been quite a trial. I clutch my pearls for having to talk to them for 5 years because they are like the worst, the very worst. And so that's the problem. To make the clear distinction, natural telepathy happens on a bridge of love. Gas in the car. You genuinely meditate, gather together your energy. And then I was talking to you about bootstrapping and how to start a business. There's no way to get a loan. Because some of you were like, oh, like start a business, just get a small business loan. There is no SBA, Small Business Association. There's no small business loan that you can get to be able to get your pineal gland functional. You got it, guys? You got to bootstrap. So that means that you have to take the energy that you have at the beginning of each day and use it very, very effectively. Let's say you want to start a business and every day you're given $100. And that's all. You can't borrow money from other people. You have to spend that $100 very effectively. If you're like, okay, every day I'm going to spend 99 of my dollars, and I'm just going to put one of my dollars towards, personal self-advancement and building my business, you're not going to get anywhere. It's going to take you a year to get $365 together. You're not going to get anywhere. You got it? You got to be using 100% of your $100 every day, put it into your business so that way you will get enough money to be able to activate your higher faculties. And when you get that foundational amount to get this thing going, like imagine this is like a computer, but it's not a computer. But imagine it's the equivalent of getting a computer. And you have to earn, you have to save your money. But every day you save your money, you only spend $1. You save 99 of your dollars. And then after a week, you have enough money to be able to buy a computer. And then the whole world opens up because all of a sudden you can contact people via email. You can create a website. You can buy products and buy raw materials to make a business with. Everything changes. That is exactly what happens when you activate your higher faculties. You are able to talk to other consciousnesses. That's what email is. You're able to talk to other consciousnesses on a bridge of love through respect. And you can get so much support, reciprocity, inspiration from talking to other consciousnesses, including talk to a plant, talk to the sun, talk to a person from 10,000 years ago. You can get amazing levels of inspiration. And then the key point is that everything that you receive just encourages you on your path and you put it all back into your business. So let's say you work hard, meditate, activate your higher senses, and you're able to talk to the sun. What the very first thing that happens when you talk to the sun in this type of conversation is you get a big giant amount of energy with all sorts of inspirations. You get cellular healing. Maybe you were really, really tired from all of your efforts to be able to get up to that level. And you get all of this energy that flows into you from the sun, and every single part of your body gets fully restored. And you're like, oh, I feel so energized and so great and so healthy now. And then there's even still more energy because then you also get an idea of how to keep going, how to stay at a high energy level, what you should do in each moment, how you should shape your life, what you should do in terms of making things happen in time. But you're not getting these ideas from some crappy government or artificial, whatever, social media nonsense or Antichrist stuff. You're getting it from a beautiful, loving parent. That's like, hey, you know something? Hey, kid, you know what would be really great? you should do something like this, and you should do something like this. And you know something? I am even an advanced adult, and I get inspiration from the sun all the time. That's why I did my little comic book with stick figures. I was outside doing my sun gazing and getting wonderful sun. Like it's nice and summertime, getting lots of sun here. And I'm like, you know what? I want to make this little like comic strip. And like, I don't question it. I don't go into rationalism and like self-doubt and everything like that. I'm just like, oh, that would be a great idea. I'm going to do that. And then I just get right up, get my notebook, get my pencil, and start going with it. Because I know at this point, like, don't dilute the directive. Just take the directive and do it, even if it's anti-rational. And sometimes my rational mind is like, why are you doing this stupid comic book? It's like, shut up, mind. Let me do what I need to do. Like sometimes I do that to myself, but I don't really do it that much anymore because I have seen how my life unfolds in positive ways when I simply follow these directives. So I don't rationalize myself now when I shop by Glow. I don't say to myself, like, you can't buy that, that's too expensive. Or you can't eat that, that's too many calories. Or you can't that's too much this. I'm like, quiet down, mind. I'm doing it anyway because I'm a very non-rational person. And also I'm responsible to myself. Like I take care of my own life. I take care of my own body, my own money, my own everything. So I don't have anyone to answer to except for myself. So I feel very comfortable doing that. But of course, when you are doing things in your own life, you might have to answer to yourself. You might have to answer to your boss, co-workers, spouses, children. I just please recognize, and you can explain to them like, oh, like I know this is not rational, but I'm doing what I need to do. But just like don't torpedo your life, because you're being non-rational. But also recognize, like at a certain point, they will be like, hey, you know something, Dad? I know that wasn't the most rational thing, but it ended up working out really well. And next time, I'm not going to be critical of you when you do something that's non-rational. Because sometimes you're like, I don't know why, but I'm packing a flashlight today. And then the lights go out and you're like, oh, that was a pretty great non-rational idea, wasn't it? And everybody made fun of you or whatever for being prepared. And it turns out that you were the one that actually had what you needed. So sometimes even when you are like a leader of your family and you're making a non-rational choice, and they might all be like, well, why can't we do this or that? Or why are we doing this? Be like, hey, I know it's not rational, but this is just what I feel like I need to do. And then it ends up being exactly the right thing. And then they will be like, oh, that was a great non-rational choice. So you have to please mitigate those that you are responsible to. But as far as I'm concerned, like in my own life, I'm responsible to myself and of course to my dog. And I make non-rational choices all the time. But yeah, no, so that's why I can say to my mind, like, just quiet down or whatever, if I'm going to buy a product, my mind might be like, that's an expensive product. And I'm like, I'm shopping by Glow and that's what I need to do. So please be sensible. Don't go over your budget because you're shopping by Glow, but honor as much as you can those inner directives that tell you what you need to do. Let's contrast natural telepathy that is on a bridge of love with synthetic telepathy, because these are not only fueled by different things, but they have completely different qualities. When you do natural telepathy, there's an impulse that comes from inside of you. And it moves through your chakras and it takes on qualities through each one of those chakras. Like, for example, when impulses are coming through here, they're either clothed with words or words are removed. Words are the package that contains the present, like when you get a birthday package. There's the box and there's the gift that is inside. Words are just the box and the gift is the intention inside. And when you are going to speak to someone telepathically, information comes from your intellect, clothed with words, through your heart, and comes to here. Then you have to take the birthday package part. So it's just the essence of what you want to communicate. Put it into your mind here, and then it goes through your tendril of attention to the person that you're sending it to. So this important thing in terms of respect and reciprocity is that your tendril of attention creates a bridge between yourself and that which you are touching upon. And you must be respectful and it must be consensual. And that's also why I don't want you to touch too much on things that are outright doo-doo, because you are ingesting small amounts of whatever you touch on. So if I touch on this plant, I'm happy to eat some of this plant and to learn from it. If I touch on the sun, happy to touch on and eat and learn from the sun. But how about pathogenic, crazy people on social media? That is not something that I'm happy to touch on with my mind tendril. Sometimes I touch on things when I read them on social media and I'm like, gross, 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 get me out of here. And I don't want to even delve any further. And this is really essential to start to go into, like, you have to know about satanic stuff because it's part of your world. And it's like saying, like, why is so-and-so cringing? I don't want to hug so-and-so. You have to know that satanics exist in the world. It's not just a fantasy. But also, you do not have to delve into every single gross crevice of humanity to know that these things exist. When I touch on things on social media, sometimes I can even just scan a post without even reading it. And I'm like, gross, I don't even want to know. And I don't go any further. Just like I can tell when I'm at the store, if I hold up whatever, a particular item, sometimes I don't even have to touch it. But sometimes I can just, like, this is like the opposite of shopping by glow. It's, I don't even have a word for it, but it's gross. Some stuff is gross, and I don't want to even have anything to do with it. But my mind touches on it, I'm like, ugh, I don't want that. I don't even have to, open the bag. I don't have to smell it. I don't have to sense its texture in any way. I can just tell it's not for me. I'm trying to think of an example of a product that is like that, but just some things are inherently repulsive to me. So there are some things that are in our world, that the world of false light, Antichrist technology, and social media that I know I don't want to touch on that with my mind. I don't want to pollute my mind, even just a whiff of that. Oh, here's a good example. I get my dog's medicine at Costco. And when we're walking through there to get to the pharmacy, first there's this entry area where they have all these things like hot dogs and pizzas and all these other things. And just, it smells terrible to me. I can tell it's all really low quality food and none of it is nutritive to me and to what I want. And so when we're walking through there, I can just tell, I'm like, I don't want to look, I don't want to read the menu. I don't want to look on people's plates. I don't want to look and know what this stuff is. I'm like, I know, not look at my face. I'm like, look, none of this is appealing to me. None of this is food for me. I do not want to eat any of this food. It's that type of sense. So there are some worldviews, people, personalities, subject matter that I can tell just from getting a whiff of those hot dogs. I'm like, ugh, I would never eat that in 10 million years. Get it away from me. And that's so fair. And what you really want to do is cultivate that because you don't want to have to ingest a lot of gross stuff. The worst thing is if you have to actually eat something that's gross and then your body tells you like, I told you not to eat this gross thing. And now you feel like this. That would be the example of like, say a movie poster or a trailer for some gross horror movie and you have to go watch it, like you're with your family or boyfriend or whatever, and you have to watch it. And then afterwards, you have all this imagery in your mind of like zombies or dismemberments. And you're like, this feels so gross. Like, I didn't want to have to watch that. I didn't want to eat that gross thing. And I did because I was socializing with others. And now it's inside of me. And then you have to somehow purge the false light and get it out of you. Or here's another example, propaganda. Sometimes I walk around town with my dog and I live in California and it's a very propagandized little area. The people that believe in Rachel Maddow and like these different propaganda mouthpieces that are on TV and the things that they're saying and their agenda. And I don't ingest any of that. Those are the examples of like gross hot dogs and low quality food that I know I don't want to eat. But I walk around with my dog and sometimes someone might be like, oh, like your dog is so cute, like a nice old lady. Your dog is so cute. I'm like, she's friendly, like you can say hi, just petting her. And then the lady will be like, did you see what happened on the news today? And so, and Trump is so bad. And I'm just like, I don't want your propaganda. And I don't say that to her, but I just say like, oh, sorry, my dog is leading me on. Goodbye. Have a nice day. Bye forever. Like, I just do it like that, And Cheeky's wonderful with this because she also has a zero propaganda, zero negativity tolerance. And so she can just like kids that are like, I don't want to hug Uncle so-and-so. My dog's the best barometer of people. And that's why she barked at all of the homeless meth addicts in San Diego. She'd be like, woof, woof, get away from me. Like, you don't belong over here. Like, she could see him coming from a mile away. So the point is, when you start to get good at using your precog abilities, and everybody has precog abilities, and you will cultivate them too, you can start to sense and anticipate. You're like, I don't have to eat that gross thing. I know it's not going to be good. I don't have to watch that gross movie. I know it's not going to be good. I don't have to read that stupid article. I know it's propaganda. You can get that good and you can even sense a person. You're like, I don't even want to talk to that person. I can sense that person is like a walking, talking propaganda hot dog that I know I don't want to have anything to do with. All of that is totally fair. And you are not required to delve into dark topics as a type of service. So I wasn't even sure how I could talk about this without being banned. But remember that there was something years ago that was like, like about pizza, right? Because some of these words even are like, you will be banned or deplatformed from saying it. But there were some emails about people that had an appetite for very low quality types of pizza. And people felt that they had a responsibility to learn about the ingredients in the pizza in profound detail in order to be able to fight against it. But I think that a lot of people got like too much of that inside of them. They put their tendril of attention onto dark topics too much. And if you don't have protective inner capacities or the enzymes to unlock what you're eating, it's just going to give you the worst indigestion. And I think a lot of people got spiritual indigestion from too much of focusing their mind on the actions of evil people in your society. I want you to know that it is enough for you just to know that that stuff exists. You do not have to delve in excruciating detail to watch videos of people being flayed alive to know that it exists. Just know that it is there. All right. And that's it. It does not help you to fight against it better to directly ingest or get molecular ingestion of that stuff. Don't do it, because it's really more diminishing and polluting and dragging you down than it is of empowering you by learning about your enemy. All right. So don't. It's not really going to help your immune system to that type of stuff. Know that it exists. And then there's better, more effective ways to fight that have to do with keeping yourself pure and keeping yourself high energy and not remanifesting that stuff into the world, rather, because when they influence your mind and your mind makes reality, then they are indirectly influencing reality. And dark, evil people actually have very, very weak light bulbs. They don't make a lot of stuff happen in the world because they don't have a lot of light. So they're not doing a lot in the world. But dark, evil, weak light bulbs can influence you. And you guys are beautiful, profound spotlights that are making a lot of stuff happen in the world. So this is the whole point. Don't allow them, their worldview, their indoctrination, and also their horrible crimes to influence you so that you manifest that thinking it's inevitable. What you can say to yourself is, I'm aware that these, what is the word, like degenerates, that these degenerates and degenerate activities exist, and I do not consent to them being in existence, and I do not manifest them forward in my mind. They have existed up until now, but things are different. This is what you tell your rational mind. They're there, dear rational mind. These things have existed through time. It is not inevitable for them to exist in the future. I do not manifest them into the future. In fact, what I do is think about things that are solutions that stop these things from being manifested into the future. And it is also okay if you do not have the exact recipe for the solutions. You don't have to look in excruciating detail at what is incorrect in the world. And you don't have to have the exact recipe for solutions. I got it. I got it. I'm the chef. I got the recipe. I know how to make lasagna. What you can do is you can know that, oh, Aurora can make lasagna. And then things can get much, much better. And I hope that that doesn't sound like paternalistic or condescending. One day you will make lasagna too. You guys are all on that pathway. You are learning how to do it. But that is also a lot to ask of you when you are still at the infancy toddler stage of learning time dynamics and figuring out how to do stuff. All right. So if you're wondering, like, how can this world ever get better? And it seems so crappy and blah, 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 blah. Like, Aurora does know how to make this stuff happen and get better. And she is doing it. And then we will learn how to do it too. But I don't want to put that heavy burden on you, because that's too much to put on a young person who's still developing. Still developing. Okay. Now, wait. We have to go into so telepathy, you're sending out an impulse on a bridge of love to another organism. They receive that impulse. And then what happens is it literally gets translated through an area of the brain. Just like think of a drum skin. That's the vibrating membrane of a drum. Your language centers are a drum skin. And the telepathy impulse comes and it reverberates the drum skin. And if this is English, an English word is spoken. And if this is Chinese, Chinese word is spoken, and you interpret it. If you're a dolphin, it's interpreted as like those little click languages and, you know, those cute little noises that it makes. I apologize, I'll have to take time to restart my thing. It's the impulse is translated into a thing that you can interpret as the species that you are, all right? And then when you reply back in telepathy, you send an impulse that is just a raw impulse that is not clothed with words, and then the other person receives that impulse and then they translate it into whatever is their form of communication. So you can talk to a rock shrimp because what you do is you send out a non-English impulse to the shrimp. The shrimp receives it, translates it as some crazy rock shrimp thing that it can comprehend, and then replies to you in an abstraction that you then translate for human English or Chinese or whatever. Okay, now let's contrast this with horrible, inadequate synthetic telepathy. Because in the telepathy that I've just spoken to you, not only is it done on a bridge of love, that means that you can't send out telepathy hate vibes to others. You cannot, on a natural telepathy, be beaming at someone else, like being at a rock shrimp, like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. You literally cannot do it. That is the stratification. If you're busy on the I hate you vibe, you're down here with Stephen King and these nightmares, all right? And in order to get up here to where we're talking about like harmonics of the universe and all sorts of interesting, cool stuff, you have to do it on a bridge of love. And then you're talking to other people who are also on a bridge of love. And the love is not necessarily love, like affection, but it is definitely reciprocity and respect and not cruelty and sadism and things that are down here at the bottom, all right? But synthetic telepathy is totally different. Synthetic telepathy was created by antichrists using antichrist hardware and software specifically to transmit hate vibes. They do send out messages of hate, and I hear them all the effing time, and it is effing disgusting what I have been exposed to. Horrible. Horrible. It is very disrespectful. It makes it almost impossible to live a positive, healthy life. And it is a huge waste of time because basically you end up having your one ends up having one's creative energy distracted by hate vibes. That's pretty much what you got. And this thing, like, you know, imagine when you're trying to do some kind of a gymnastics or golf or something like that, and someone's in the audience, and they're like, you're gonna mess it up. And you mess it up because you got hate vibes coming in on the synthetic telepathy. The synthetic telepathy is specifically transmitted on, that is a parallel architecture to your natural neurology. And here's what that looks like. None of it is done on a bridge of love. In fact, the destroys love. Love is a literal frequency, a love tone. When that stuff goes into the body and it creates a neural lace and it gets connected to this larger systemized network of neural laces, it is so corrosive, bad, and wrong, it destroys love. And that's why it is so anti-ascension, because what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to learn how to get up to love, activate your higher faculties, and ascend with your group. But instead they are eating away at the love vibration, so you can't even get up to that level. And it's unfair to do it with technology. And that's why I tell you, the ascended masters from previous generations never had to deal with this effing SHIT. They never had to deal with that. They could get to love and then do what they need to do. And you and I get up to the level of love, and then something siphons that energy off. It is not fair. Imagine you've got a bank account and you're putting money in your bank account. You're like, I'm saving my money. I'm a good girl. And then you go to look in your bank account and there's $3 in there. Where did my money go? Someone stole it. And that's what this is. They are stealing the love vibration, and they steal it and they misappropriate it with this W-band, this worldwide body connected networking, and the rich people get the love energy. They're like, Aurora, this doesn't sound right at all. I'm like, you are correct. If you are feeling agitated or inflamed or angry, you should feel that way, because people should not be feeling your hard-earned biological, physical life force energy and misappropriating it in the fulfillment of their dreams. And that is literally what the satanics and the dark magicians do in your world. You got to learn how to keep your energy with you. And that's very, very difficult to do. I am an expert and I've been here for 5 years learning how to do this. And it is definitely effing hard. And I work at it literally all day long. And it's harder when I'm talking. Like it's easier when I'm focused and I don't have to be talking because it definitely affects the language centers. So there's something big about the original implant of language in your human mind, making you vulnerable and cutting you off from God and divine intelligence. And then there's also something about this synthetic telepathy. People call it V2K, voice to skull and voice of God technology, beaming crap into your mind that these are distractive thoughts and they're not self-arising. And if you ever wonder, like, how do you know it's self-distractive and it's not you, blah, blah, my life was very, very different before 2019, 2020. I had a very, very different mental state. Before they turned on, I had a very different mental state. And I did not have this crap coming into my mind. And I definitely know the before and after pictures. I know what it felt like not to have this stuff come in my mind. I know what my true mind is. And I know what this crap stuff is. And it is not supposed to be there. So I was very confused when they first turned on the synthetic telepathy because I was like, this is so weird. Like I'm getting stuff in my mind, but it's not coming on a bridge of love. Like, what is this? How can this be happening? I did not even know how to respond to it because it is such a non-thing that should not happen. Like imagine like you're like whatever standing around and somebody's like shoving food in your mouth. Like this is like what? How can this be happening? This is very weird. And why am I tasting Doritos? Like that is what it was like to me. And it is the equivalent of Doritos because it is very inflammatory and non-nutritive. That this is how synthetic telepathy works. It is just a stimulation of your brain with electrical currency. They have been able to map human brains. And please know this is not just something that happens in a laboratory with consenting subjects. This happens to people when they're on their phones or tablets with non-consenting subjects. And you're being surveilled on a neurological level. And it is possible to know when you are thinking something like, I've already used this example, spaghetti for dinner. You think that in your mind. And your mind is mapped so much that then a targeted ad comes up for Barilla pasta because spaghetti for dinner was thought in your mind. And the consequences are people start to doubt and have porous boundaries. Did I think spaghetti for dinner and then it showed me that I'm going to have this pasta? Did it read my mind? Or was spaghetti for dinner implanted in my mind through V2K and then I acquiesced to it? And then the computer showed me where I should buy my pasta from. Very, very troubling aspect of dissolving boundaries between self and machine. That is what transhumanism is. It's very gross and disgusting. So the way that that happens is not on a bridge of love. It happens through an electrical current stimulating various areas of your brain so that it makes a patterning of a word. So you can imagine like the word spaghetti is a phoneme structure that when your brain is stimulated in a certain way, makes that sound inside. But you can have the sound without the meaning. In traditional telepathy, you cannot have a sound without meaning. The meaning is what strikes the drum in your mind to make the sound. But there's no meaning. There's just the sound that like an electrical current is making that sound. So spaghetti can mean a bunch of different things. You can have spaghetti or, whatever. Words and phonemes end up becoming bereft of meaning because what is happening is just a series of buttons are being pressed in a person's mind. Spaghetti, button. For, button. Dinner, button. And it's also being stimulated by an external non-expert, a human being or someone of that equivalent that is not an ascended master. That is just a person like in a control center that is pressing buttons and stimulating your mind. And that's very, very different than telepathy, where genuine communication is attempted through people that are on the same footing. It's inherently disempowering the way that synthetic telepathy is used. An unseen person who's behind the power structure, reaches out with electrodes and stimulates your mind. And that's literally what the government does. Says, you will think this. Button, 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 button. Zap, 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 zap. You will think this. Very, very different than something where it's like, I am talking to a plant, or I am talking to the sun, or I'm talking to my dog. Totally different power dynamic. And very distressing, of course, to experience. And neurologically damaging. This stuff fries brain. So it distracts you, causes neurological damage and brain fry. And also does have an impact on your true genetic behavior because your mind and your genes are connected together. You know, this is like Bruce Lipton, biology of belief. What you believe and what you think affects your biology. So, you know, what you think about can have a big impact on your health. Like, what if this thing is constantly telling you cancer, cancer, cancer? And it's beaming that crap into your mind. It definitely affects people's body and affects the likelihood of them developing cancer. And we've had too much of that in the world. And it is not accidental that that started being a lot more. My face is looking so unhappy right now. 5 years ago, when they started doing the synthetic telepathy stuff, it's definitely having a biological impact on people. And it's incredibly difficult to stay healthy and to not manifest the negative time edifices that these things are trying to create. Sometimes it's about diseases, sometimes it's about suicide, or suicide programs, other forms of self-destruction, or it can be about poverty, or it can be about other forms of failure in your life. And none of this is arising from within. I've already ranted enough in this class about flawed shadow work. If you hear cheeky right now, she needs to have a medicine. She's coughing a little bit. She's getting way overexcited. She's playing with the toy. She's coughing a little bit. So she'll have her medicine soon. Very, very difficult to overcome these signals and to stay focused on the timelines that are actually life affirming and that bring you to eternal life. So think of it like you're driving a car and you're like, I'm going to be an ascended master. I'm driving on the central road to get to ascended mastery. And these synthetic voices are like, no, you're not. You're going to go over here and pull you over here. And they're going to go over here and pull you over here. I'm like, all of that makes it incredibly difficult. So every day, it's just me. I'm like, white knuckle. I'm like, I am driving on the road to Ascension. Nothing's taking me off my path. Like, that's what you have to be like. And that is very unnatural in terms of an ascension posture, because ascension is supposed to be like this. I'm so relaxed. I'm so relaxed. Like rose petals are showering upon me. I feel so relaxed and great. I'm ascending. I'm going up. I'm feeling so super. Like it is not supposed to be like this. So I'm just trying to get you guys to comprehend like everything about what you have to do right now is so unnatural in terms of ascension. Can't really relax. You have to hold up all these boundaries. You have to be constantly detoxing, constantly purging, constantly getting stuff away from you. And a lot of that is just making it way more difficult than it actually is supposed to be. And almost impossible. But it is possible, but just know that it's incredibly challenging. We're going to have to wrap it up soon because I want to give Cheeky her medicine. But back to one of these questions, and then I'll go to some of your other comments. Kim says, does this crapola get stored in fat? Let's go to more questions. Could it be that obesity is a genetic mutation that creates a way for more nanotech structures to be held in the body? As children, my mom never let us eat Doritos, and we almost never went to fast food. For this, I'm very thankful. I did the same for my kids too. Well, you did a good job, Mom, of protecting your kids from that. That's really good. Please know that there is a direct connection between fat and emotional storage. Even beyond nanotech and things like that, when people are traumatized, they store the traumatized moment in time, like the frozen moment in time, in their body. And it's usually in fat, but it can also be in fascia, and it can be in visceral fat. So it's not always in like fat that is here on your external body. Sometimes it is around your organs. It can be a fatty blockage artery. It can be a fatty liver. It can be fat is basically undigested emotion. All right. And obesity is not a genetic mutation, but what is happening is in the mitochondrial DNA, which is matrilineal, not Sergeant is barking, and not the same exactly as your nuclear DNA. There are three options. Let's hug cheeky while we're talking about the options of what can happen with glucose in the body. So in your body, with glucose, you have three options. Like, let's say you eat some sugary snacks. The first option is to run around, like little kids, jump around when they get sugar in their body. They're like, wee, like we're running around, right? But what if you're an adult and you're sitting at your desk at work? Now let's run around. The next option is fat storage, because your body is like, I got all this energy, but I don't know what to do with it. Store it as fat. But the third option is also stored in your mitochondrial DNA. And it is an option to simply bypass the calories and release them, which goes against every single primal and ancestral trauma when your body was told there's not enough. So for anybody whose ancestors went through any kind of starvation, holodomor, or famine, and that's pretty much everybody in this whole entire world has something like that in their genetic ancestry. The body stores that up and says, if there's extra food, save it. Save it, save it, save it, because you do not know when you are going to get more food. And it is a huge level and aspect of inner healing to be able to talk to your DNA in your mitochondria and say, if you have excessive glucose, can release it and bypass it. We don't have to use it and we don't have to store it. It is a higher administrative function of your mitochondria to make a decision like that. And it is emblematic of the healing of starvation traumas, both in your own individual life and also in ancestral trauma. So it is a repatterning to be able to talk to your cellular structure and affirm and reassure it. We have plenty of food. We don't need this. We can release it. And it does also relate to your relationship to objects in your life. An example for me is I have these shoes, this particular style of shoes that I like to wear because, I do a lot of walking and everything like that. And I really only found like 2 styles of sandals that I like and that come in my size, right? And so when I find them, like I buy them and then I keep them and then, like I wear them. But when I wear them and they're all worn out from, like walking on a treadmill all day long, then sometimes I still keep them because I'm like, oh, I don't know. I mean, like I know that they're not good and they're worn out and blah, blah, but I don't know when I'm going to get another pair of these. Got it? And so sometimes I kind of look at my closet and I have like, all of these old dead shoes that I'm clearly not wearing them. I really only wear 2 pairs. I don't need the old ones, but I look at them and I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should keep these. It takes a lot for me to be like, let's take them and put them in the trash. We'll get new ones. Because I'm like, oh, but where am I going to get new ones? Where am I going to this and where am I going to that? Somehow every year I get new ones. And I haven't gone barefoot and bereft yet, but I still sometimes have that. So you just have to laugh at yourself and talk to yourself. Don't always tell yourself to shut up. Sometimes you're like, there, self. Let's throw away these shoes because we don't wear them anymore. They are old and dead. We need to get a new pair. And then you will get a new pair. And the more that you do that, the more that you are affirmed inside that a new pair will always come. Especially now that we're talking about higher faculties, when you have your higher faculties awakened. Because I actually know I made those shoes with my mind. I envisioned them. And then I also did the next step, which is to look on shopping, online shopping websites and to put in my shoe size, which is very large, which is why it's hard for me to find shoes in my size. And if you want to know, because everyone's wondering, I'm a size 12. I'm a ladies 12, which is very, very large. And I also joke sometimes that I'm part Bigfoot. But yeah, and then I have to actually do the web search and I have to actually find the shoes, but they're always there. And I know it on a deep level. It's because I am putting them there for myself. And that's why even after I wear the shoes out, I can tell myself, I made these pair, I will make the next pair, I will find the next pair, I will somehow do it. So you talk to yourself and you energize the DNA in your mitochondria with food, and you are able to say, this is not my last sandwich. I made this sandwich. I am aligning with future sandwiches. Body, if you don't need the energy of this sandwich, please release it. We will get more, and you will always get more. And it is a very, very, it's challenging to do that. When you do that, it represents that you are profoundly healed. And that really, when we walk through the world as ascending masters, we are always in that level of self-assurance because we know that anything that we need, we can make. I think a much better example is the dress that I'm actually wearing, because I did not sew a sewing machine, but I envisioned this dress. I designed it with my template, with my design company, and I made the dress. And so, because this is actually good. Way back, I used to wish that I could find rainbow clothes. And I couldn't find anything that I really liked. Like I would, look on eBay and look on all these different places and look in stores, and I'd be like, I don't like any of these clothes. And none of it's rainbow enough for me. And then I started to design my own clothes in 2017. And from that moment on, I was never like, well, where am I going to get clothes from? And what am I going to do? And this is, oh no, my sweater got a hole in it. How am I going to get a new one? Since then, I was like, oh, no problem. Like if I wear this out or if it gets a hole in it or whatever, I'll make a new one. And that has been transformative for me. And I know that I can literally make a dress in whatever size I need, in whatever style I want. The freedom is exhilarating. And you should use that as an example in your own mind of what it is like to live in freedom when your higher faculties are activated. So the goal, like when you're a little tiny baby, because we got through infancy to toddlerhood, we need to get up to like young adulthood, is self-empowerment. So when you're no longer a toddler and you're starting to grow and you're more than just like mobile, like what happens? Like you become a little kid, then you become a young person, and at a certain point you're a teenager, you're not fully an adult, but what you are able to do is ride your bicycle around town. And it's not the same as having a car, but it means you can do more than just toddle around like a toddler. You can move through time. You can go places and do stuff. So the action of your senses and your light body senses and everything that's in your higher faculties is about anticipating the future, navigating through time so that you can go places, so that you can know what you're doing, so that you can do stuff and make stuff happen. So when you're a teenager, you are still not fully responsible for yourself. You still live with your mom and dad and they take care of most of the bills and stuff like that, but you have a bicycle and you can go places. You are expected to have some levels of self-responsibility, meaning you're not supervised all the time. You might even have a part-time job. I don't know if kids do anymore, but it used to be that kids would mow the lawn or work in the pizza parlor or something like that for a few hours each week to have a little bit of their own personal money to spend and to be able to buy whatever, either snacks and drinks, or maybe like have a girlfriend and you take your girlfriend out, right? A little bit of personal discretionary funds, but you're not expected to support your whole entire family. You're a kid, all right? That is analogous to once you start to be able to create time structures and edifices, and you can get some stuff done, and you're more powerful than a tiny toddler. Like you can do more than just make a chocolate bar. Like maybe you can make a whole business or a whole thing. A whole edifice is a better word I have for it. Like whatever, a whole music festival, a whole experience that you can go to. But that's not the same as making a planet and sustaining life. Because sometimes you can really be aware. You're like, you know something? I manifested a whole entire music festival with all of these musicians and a whole weekend gala of all of these cool things that happened, all these cool people. And it was amazing. And you can know that you are the magician, or you are the magical person creating that event for yourself. But that's not the same as making a planning. And it's not the same as creating life. And it's not the same as sustaining all of the event structures on a planet with complex biological life forms. That's being an ascended master and above. All right. So teenager level, adolescent level is about gaining the necessary levels of, I want to say, responsibility and motivation to be able to become an adult. And you do that with a little bit of support and safety net. And then, of course, being an ascended master means you're no longer in physical reality. You've graduated from the physical form. You do not eat physical food anymore. You are 100% made of light. You're 100% an abstraction. You're creating time along with time and creating life forms, along with time on an abstract level and then sustaining them and caring for your creation. So you have to learn all of the accrual of wisdom, building of your light body and creating light around you to be able to get to the level of ascended mastery so that when you're there, you are creating from the correct posture and with the correct motivations and intentions and responsibleness to the organisms that you create and the other creators around you. And that's basically being a star. I mean, spoiler alert, I always say that, spoiler alert, you become a star. So when you're a star, you're creating with others around you. Pardon me while I drink. Thank you. You're not the only star. There's others around you. You have your areas of responsibility, your planets. They have their areas of their responsibility, but you're all coordinated by tap, 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 the great conductor. Galaxy, the galactic center that tells you what to do, and then you coordinate all of those things. So achieving those levels of mastery so that you create a perfect harmonically integrated symphony. And it's a symphony that is constantly innovated. So it's not like the music of Mozart. It is always changing, always growing and evolving, and not static. It's very dynamic, and everybody is always changing and growing. If you've ever been in a band, like jam bands are the hardest because like you guys, you're not just practicing one song that everybody can agree upon. You are definitely having to all be at your greatest levels of mastery. Sorry, I just made a very, very silly face because I'm also kind of reading over here. Okay, so I hope I answered that question effectively. And let me scroll down. You're laughing at my story about that lady who waved for diamonds. I know. I learned a lot about human behavior actually from that job being a custom framer. And I'm glad that I worked there, even though it was difficult and like low paying work. I wasn't exactly a millionaire, but I had to be there. I had to learn about it. Michelangelo says, thank you, Master. We're off to jump over the sun over the sun simulator and power up Ephra. Love to all. Thank you very much for that. And that's a great example of behavior. I'm glad that people make a commitment with the sun. And also, I like how you say that. Up and over, jump up and over the sun simulator. Kimber says, such a stellar class. Thank you for your dedication, humor, and compassion. You are very, very welcome. Thank you for your great questions. And Michelangelo says, wow, still ongoing. Have to catch the replay. Thank you again. You're very, very welcome. And today was kind of a long class, and I'm not surprised because as I was going through my notes, I knew that I had a lot to say, and I knew that this would be many hours. So thank you for attenuating to me through this class. I want you guys to know that I literally do this intentionally. Like when we talk about sending out your tendril of attention, right? And touching on things and whatever you're touching on. Don't touch on the doo-doos. Don't ingest from there, but do ingest from me. I literally make these classes because I'm saying things with my words, but I'm also saying things with my energy. So that when you tune in to me, when you touch on me with your tendril of attention, you're getting good nutrition. I make sure that I am made out of good ingredients. This lasagna is made out of healthy ingredients. So that way, when you touch on me, you are going to get healthy nutrients. And then, of course, like you must digest the nutrients and, integrate them into your own body in a way that is sensible for you. But I know that what I am sending out is good, well-intentioned, well-presented, and positive good food. And that's also why I am very conscientious about the vocabulary words that I use while I'm doing this and the mind state that I'm in when I send out these videos. All of it very, very intentional. So I kind of like, I get into a particular mindset when I'm gonna do class that I know is gonna be as divinely connected as I can be and as, intentionally clear and well-tuned, like an instrument that is well-tuned so that you're getting that as something that you can attenuate to. And you know what, guys? I often watch my own class afterwards because I like the clarity of signal that is coming through me when I do the class. and when I watch the playback too, that can be very nourishing and positive, because there are very few things, like the things that are on YouTube and on Netflix and whatever, like very few things that are positive. I make this face and I'm like, look, like, where's the good food? There's very, very little good food. So sometimes the best food is the food that I make for myself, and I know that it's going to be good. So even though, like, I know what I said during class, sometimes I tune in just for the vibe, to be able to feel that way. And so I'll bring it to a conclusion. And of course, I'm open to any continued questions or comments or anything that you guys need for clarity. But I am doing everything I can behind the scenes and, overtly, to be able to end the synthetic telepathy, because that is the major thing that is holding humanity back right now from being able to be genuine galactic citizens. I like what I write in my notes. It is necessary to come through this level of like personal construction, so that way you are ready to join the galactic dance party. And the stuff that's happening on your planet right now, it's been so anti-learning. It's been a non-educational, anti-learning environment for you. And humanity has been intentionally kind of like stuck off to the side, because there's so much just crap that is happening here right now, that we don't really want that to be connected to the loudspeaker of the cosmos yet. Like, if you're in front of the microphone and everything you say with your mind, it's going to be broadcast everywhere. Like, just not yet. Not yet. We don't want that yet, because you know why? This is what I need to end on. Humanity right now has a lot of pathogens that have been woven into the human genetic qualities and social dynamics and structure of your world. And you've got to purge that stuff out. You don't want to bring it into the next chapter, and we definitely don't want to magnify it into the future. So as I was telling you about like the gray aliens and other fictional stuff like that, you don't want to make that happen. And of course, you guys aren't going to become the gray aliens, but you don't want to let that happen by having these other guys become the gray aliens, because you know what? You're going to have to deal with them. The answer with all of this is you are going to have to deal with dark magicians one way or another. Right now, they're all community members on your planet, and some of them are elected world leaders. Some of them are technologists, scientists, computer scientists, telecommunications engineers. Some of them are in the military. Some of them are in the intelligence communities. These are going to become evil aliens. And you're going to have to deal with them either now or over the next however many millennia, as they spread themselves throughout the galaxy as a bunch of, bloodthirsty, technology-addicted aliens. Don't have to take that as an inevitability. If I can plant a seed in your mind, it's the sense that you are powerful in time, that your mind is powerful, that you're powerful in time, and that you can prevent bad stuff. And as you're growing into your levels of personal responsibility and becoming a master, a lot of what you need to recognize is that you got to prevent bad stuff from happening, not just respond to it. Here's what I will end on. I watched a very silly show that was like a cartoon superhero show, and it was maybe a bit bloody and gory, so I don't know if I would recommend it if you're sensitive in that way. It's called Invincible, and the name of the superhero character is Invincible. And it was on like Amazon Prime. Okay, please don't judge me because I watched this show. And like, I've definitely been exploring the superhero genre over the past couple of weeks. All right. So the main character of that show is trying to be super idealistic and kind of like Superman. He's like, no, like, I'm not going to kill the bad guys. He's just going to, like, punch them into oblivion. And then they're going to be taken away to some kind of like black site super prison, like a Gitmo or whatever, by the government. And then they'll be there in supervillain's prison. But here's what happens in the show. Even though he's so assiduous and he doesn't kill the bad guys, they go to prison and then they break out. And they cause him more problems later. And then this one guy is a supervillain that he doesn't kill, and the supervillain has the capacity to go interdimensional, and the supervillain goes interdimensional, gets away, goes to another place, creates a huge army of supervillains against him, and then comes back and then just destroys like millions of people in the world. He opens a bunch of portals and says, go on over there to that Earth, get everyone, F stuff up as much as he can. And then at the end of that storyline, I hope I'm not destroying, the spoiler alert for you and everything. So Invincible kills that supervillain. And it's a whole big drag out fight too. Everybody gets all messed up. Everybody gets super injured. But he finally at the end says, you know something? I should have taken care of that guy years ago. I should have killed him all the way back then. And then he wouldn't have killed that guy, and he wouldn't have done that, and he wouldn't have done that, and he wouldn't have done that. And his fellow superheroes agree with him. And it is, I think, a very important ethical exploration of those of us who have superpowers, that there is this simplistic, moralistic, one-size-fits-all suit of clothing that says, thou shalt not kill, must never kill. And the Superman type of interpretation, like you should just beat your enemy into submission and then have them surrender and then just imprison them. And this show, I think, really is a good teaching story for a character that is on a moral trajectory. He's trying to be good, and he realizes being good sometimes means preventing bad stuff from happening. And he was severely regretful of not preventing essentially the destruction of most of the planet because he didn't deal with this supervillain. And if he dealt with them, then people would still be here and be alive. That is what you guys have to do. You have to prevent supervillains from arising and empowering themselves into the future. And that's everything from these types of medical things, these types of neurological things, but also artificial intelligence and the people who make the artificial intelligence systems and the systems that they create. You got to prevent that stuff from happening. And if you prevent it now, then you will not have to be squashbuckling across the galaxy in the future, fighting against all these guys, saying, I wish I had done something in 2025 against those guys, because then they wouldn't be causing these problems right now. You got to do it now. And that's the gift of precog, so that you can do it now and not be effed in the future. And when the precog comes to you that says, I got to do something about this now, you accept it in your heart. You don't say, oh, I think that's not moral. I think I'm not allowed to do that. I think I'm going to ignore it. Ignore it. It'll all go away. And you can't do that. So I am telling you, and I hope that you have your own precog sense of AI and the people that use it and make it. Also, the stories that I've been telling you, which are just totally fictional about some of the possible aliens that can come as a result of this. You don't want any of that. And please know that you're powerful. So instead of regressing into an infantile state, which is what some people do, is they're like, who am I? What can I do? I'm just a passive infant. I can't do anything. The answer is, no, you are not a passive infant. You're actually a powerful toddler. Look at all the messes you've made. You're a powerful toddler. You're not an infant at all. And now you have to learn how to do more than make messes, and to start to be in control of your powers, recognize that you have powers, and to start to use them to prevent bad stuff from happening. And I would say that adolescents and teenagers are definitely old enough to start to be making that level of a positive contribution. Just as I said, like adolescents can work at the pizza shop, or not the pizza shop, but like mow a lawn, or do some small tasks around town. You can do small things that are small aspects of responsibility in a larger cosmic sense that absolutely help to prevent supervillainy from coming forward in the future. And it's totally appropriate for you to influence someone else, because some of you are going to go into and be like, well, you know what? I'll do my part. I'll just make sure that I don't become a supervillain myself, but I do me, you do you. That is not enough. That is what you start to find out. You'll be on the same character arc as some of these other supervillains that are like, oh, I'm staying in my own lane, but that guy's not staying in his own lane. Wait a minute, I thought we were supposed to be stratified here. Wait a minute, those guys aren't supposed to be in my mind. And then you find out that it's not stratified, and they're using technology, and they're doing all sorts of unfair and bad stuff, and that it has a personal impact on you. Anything that is DNA related has a personal impact on you. Anything that is consciousness related has a personal impact on you. Anything that is about creating and shaping reality has a consciousness impact on you. And you are not a passive infant allowing these things to happen. So here's a good one. people are talking about, like, Bill Gates, and he is not one of my favorite people in the world. In fact, I think that he is a supervillain. And can you imagine, don't imagine, but just like, if you let that go to its logical conclusion, like he would create the worst race, you know what I mean, of aliens and everything like that. He would be the progenitor of a horrific race of gross things. And I never promote the idea of you, like, whatever, eradicating a person. Like, I'm not trying to advocate for you to pie in the face until he's no longer in the world or something like that. So that would be irresponsible on a public platform to do that. I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to say, like, he's trying to do all sorts of things to put this type of stuff, like, into vegetables. They're spraying it on vegetables. It's going into the food supply. Like, you don't have to allow that to happen. You do not have to allow that to happen. And that goes beyond the passivity of infancy into being a powerful toddler. And if you don't think that toddlers are powerful, just wait until one of them flushes their scissors down the toilet, and then nobody can use the grabber. All right, they're definitely powerful. All right, so that is what we will end on, because you know what else? I gotta go do a little bit of support for someone who needs me. All right. So Avril says, thank you, beloved Aurora. Much loved and appreciated. You are so very, very welcome. Thank you. Thank you guys for attenuating. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your excellence. Thank you for being good people in the world. Thank you for being a part of my class. Truly, truly, truly. Okay. And thank you for your love and care for Cheeky and for allowing me moments to be able to take care of her. All right. Positive blessings. Thank you, everyone.